Chapter 291. The next day, a system announcement resounded throughout the world. World announcement. Congratulations to player Jack Dawson of the United States for becoming the second Lord to be promoted to Marquis in the world. You will be given the title of Liberty Marquis, and you will be rewarded 15,000 reputation points. You will be rewarded accordingly in your city. After Ouyang Shuo, there was finally a second Lord in the world who was promoted to Marquis. This meant that the fight for the #1 county was no longer a one-man show for Ouyang Shuo. Shanghai County had yet to be promoted, giving Jack Dawson's Liberty County a chance. If Jack Dawson did not care about the completion rate and hurriedly completed the 2 missions, he might very well take the honor of being the world's #1 county before Shanghai County. Ouyang Shuo could not be sure if Jack Dawson would disregard everything for the honor of being the world's #1 county. After all, Jack Dawson had lost a county at the county level even though he had the upper hand. Now that he had lost, his desire for victory must be even stronger. He could not tolerate another loss. Ouyang Shuo was the world's #1 county. The Western lords had been suppressing their anger for a long time. They swore to regain their right to speak and not let Ouyang Shuo's eastern territory outshine others. If Jack could take the title of world's #1 county, then all the gloominess would vanish. For a moment, Ouyang Shuo was in a dilemma. Should he pursue a 100% completion rate, or should he choose to preserve the honor of being the world's #1 county? Regarding this question, the alliance of mountains and seas was divided. Siege Lion, Swan and Songwen supported preserving the honor. The reason was that it would increase the sense of honor and help raise the prestige of the alliance of mountains and seas in the China region and even the world. More importantly, Ouyang Shuo had taken the world's #1 town and the world's #1 county. If he did not continue to work hard and take the honor of being the world's #1 county, it would easily cause criticism. This was how people were. When you won glory for the country, they would naturally be full of praise and would want nothing more than to praise you to the heavens. At the same time, they were also forgetful. Once you lost glory, then criticism and abuse would come like a tide, drowning you, pulling you down from your pedestal, and wantonly whipping you. They would not care about the glory you had won before. Although Song won and the other's understanding was biased, it was still very profound and not without reason. Bai Hua, Feng Xiuhuang, and Dragon-Seeking Acupoint all supported the idea that completing the quest was their #1 priority. Honor was just an empty title. Obtaining a tangible reward was the wisest choice. After all, Shanghai County had already made a name for itself in the world. The honor of being the #1 county in the world wouldn't add much to Shanghai County's glory. Why should they give up the real benefits for the sake of fame? Both sides had their own arguments, causing Ouyang Shuo to be placed in an even more difficult position. Frankly speaking, Ouyang Shuo naturally hoped to achieve 3 consecutive championships in one go. But rationally, he was more inclined to agree with Bai Hua and the others. In his previous life, he had never heard of a lord completing 4 quests at the same time and achieving a 100% completion rate. Thinking back to the village building mission that he had just entered the game, it was not hard to imagine that the mission reward would be very generous. There might even be some hidden unique reward. How could he not be tempted? The only variable was the mission to recruit historical figures. There were simply too many uncertainties. Ouyang Shuo firmly believed that with the characteristics and popularity of Shanghai County's territory, it was impossible for it to not attract historical figures to join it. The key was time. Ouyang Shuo had to make a decision. He could not have his cake and eat it too. In the end, Ouyang Shuo decided to ignore Jack Dawson and focus on completing his own quest. Just as Ouyang Shuo decided to give up on the fight for glory, the system played a huge joke on him. On the 5th day of the 12th month of the first year of Gaia, only 2 days had passed since Jack Dawson was conferred the title of Marquis of Liberty. Wei Ran and her daughter, Wei Lan, arrived at Shanghai County through the Shanghai County office in Xianying City. Who was Wei Ran? She was a veteran of 3 dynasties in the Qin Kingdom and the lord of martial peace by Qi. When she heard that Bai Qi had become a general in Shanghai County, she specially came to seek shelter. Firstly, she wanted to become an official in Shanghai County. Secondly, she wanted to help her daughter, Wei Lan, reunite with her husband. There is no doubt that historical figures had their own relay system with the support of Gaia. Otherwise, with all the players' territories being built in the wilderness, without accurate information, how could these historical figures choose where to become officials? They could not just let a blind cat run into a dead mouse. The popularity of the territory came into play through this hidden relay system. The higher the popularity of the territory, the faster the information about the territory would reach the ears of the various historical figures. Wei Ran was a person with a strong desire for power. After the Battle of Chongping, she automatically joined the game process and descended to the main plane. Previously, he had been gathering information from all sides, preparing to find a good next target. Bai Qi was placed in an important position in Shanghai County. Finally, Wei Ran made up her mind to become an official in Shanghai County. Coupled with his daughter, Wei Lan, there was no reason not to choose Shanghai County. Name, Wei Ran, King level, title, Duke of Rang Dynasty, Warring States, Qin, identity, official of Shanghai County occupation, civil official loyalty, 75 commander, 50 martial power, 48 intelligence, 72 politics, 75 specialty, proficient in both literature and martial arts, increases security of the territory by 25%. Discerning eye increases talent development rate of the territory by 10%. Assessing the situation increases work efficiency by 15%. Evaluation. The Marquis of Rang is wise and adaptable. He relied on the Empress Dowager internally and assisted Prince Zhao externally. For times he ascended to the position of Prime Minister, and then he was conferred the title of Governor. Destroy Qi, scratch Shu, break Wei, besiege Liang. Once a man speaks, he dies of grief and indignation. Wei Ran's arrival made Ouyang Shua ecstatic, sweeping away the haze in his heart. The scene of Bai Qi and Wei Lan's reunion was not as sentimental as he had imagined. Bai Qi was an iron-blooded man. Even though he was reunited with his wife, he could not lose his usual calmness. Upon closer inspection, a trace of tenderness could be seen in Bai Qi's eyes. With Zisu's help, Wei Ran lived in the official district, which was next to Bai Qi's general's mansion. As for the official positions, they would have to wait until the territory was promoted to the next level. Under Ouyang Shua's instructions, there were only 3 or 4 outstanding scholars who had migrated to Shanghai County from Chuanzhou for the Mazu Temple Fair. Under the instructions of Ouyang Shua, the administrative office did not assign specific positions to them. After settling everything, Ouyang Shua rushed to the conference hall to prepare for the promotion of the territory. Ouyang Shua opened the control panel of the territory and clicked on the promotion of the territory. He heard the sound of a system notification. System notification. Congratulations to player, not say you have clothes. All 4 promotion tasks have been completed. Do you want to promote the territory? Yes. The territory's stone tablet rose, and a golden ray of light soared into the sky. It exploded in the sky, turning into a golden halo that spread in all directions. The halo extended to the new border of the territory before disappearing again. System notification. Congratulations to player, not say you have closed for promoting the territory to a level 1 county city. The county level lord's mansion has automatically been promoted to a county lord's mansion. Please check for yourself. At the county city, there were no more basic buildings for the lord to randomly select. Everything was built by the territory itself. Immediately after, a series of system announcements rang. System announcement. Congratulations to player, not say you have closed for becoming the first lord of the China server to promote to a level 1 county city. The reward is 4,400 merit points. The merit points reward at the county city stage was double that of the county lord stage. However, for Ouyang Shua's noble title, it was just a drop in the bucket. As soon as the announcement was made, the China server was in an uproar. All the players were witnessing another highlight of the China server. As expected, right after the system announcement, the world announcement rang out. World announcement. Congratulations to player not say you have closed for becoming the first lord of the China server to promote to a level 1 county city. The reward is 8,000 merit points, 10,000 reputation points, and the title of the number 1 county in the world for the Shanghai County. World announcement. Congratulations to player not say you have closed for completing the 4 territory promotion quests. The completion rate is 100%. The reward is a special building, a library. At this point, Ouyang Shuo was lucky enough to win 3 championships in a row, becoming the undisputed overlord of the entire world. As soon as the world announcement was made, the whole world fell silent. The Western world was dead silent. Ouyang Shuo's strength made the Western lords feel suffocated. No one paid attention to the library. Everyone's eyes were focused on Ouyang Shuo's grand achievement of 3 championships in a row. Jack Dawson shouted in the world announcement, "Congratulations to not say you have clothes." To be able to become a feudal lord, there was no one who was narrow-minded. Even if they lost, they had to lose with grace. "Thank you," Ouyang Shuo replied in a friendly manner. After dealing with the miscellaneous matters, Ouyang Shuo finally had time to check the territory stats. Territory, Shanghai Territory Lord, the Marquis of Lianzhou, not say you have closed, 2nd rank Marquis. Title, World's number 1 county, increases territory popularity by 50. Title, the land of martial arts, increases the physical fitness of territory residents by 20. Governing place, Shanghai City, level 1 county city. Governing population, 100,000/500,000. Refugee respawn rate, 500. 1 plus 50 equals 750 refugees per day. Territory area, 50,000 square kilometers. Territory characteristics. Slight political index, 75 out of 100 determines administrative efficiency, relates to popular sentiment. Economic index, 68 out of 100 determines trade prosperity, relates to tax revenue. Cultural index, 70 out of 100 determines education development, relates to the quality of residence. Military index, 78 out of 100 determines military strength, relates to stable relationships. Subordinate counties, Beihai County, Qiushui County, Yuyi County. Financial institution, Foresees Bank, Territory Chamber of Commerce. Chui's Chamber of Commerce, Hechuan Chamber of Commerce. Territory Association, Textile Association, Fishery Association. Territory Special Products, Lianzhou 3-flower wine, colorful silk, white tea. Special building, library, hidden building, Mazu Temple, recruitment hall, Yellow Emperor Temple. List of basic construction buildings. Frowny face Barbican, one of the main defensive facilities of the city, a small semicircular or square city built outside the city gate for protection. Construction requirement, 50,000 units of green bricks, 10,000 units of stone materials. Construction time, 20 days. Art Academy, the official office in charge of painting. Apart from painting all kinds of paintings, it is also responsible for the identification and arrangement of paintings, as well as the training of painting students. Construction requirement, high-level painter, architectural drawings of the Art Academy, 10,000 units of wood, 10,000 units of green bricks, 8,000 units of stone materials. Construction time, 15 days. Distribution center, the central area where goods are distributed and gathered. Construction requirement, 20,000 units of wood, 40,000 units of green bricks, 20,000 units of stone materials. Construction time, 15 days. Compared to the county city, there were some new changes in the territory attributes interface of the county city. Firstly, the territory and the administrative center were separated, and the two were no longer mentioned together. After the county city, the territory management would become more complicated. The focus of management would no longer be limited to the headquarters, but the construction of the subsidiary territories was equally important. The administrative center was where the territory capital was located. In the case of the Shanghai territory, apart from the administrative center, Shanghai City, there were 8 counties under the Blind Prefecture, which far exceeded the size of Shanghai City. Therefore, it was somewhat inappropriate to use Shanghai City to represent the territory. As the pace of territory expansion accelerated, this situation would become more and more obvious. Secondly, the three attributes of blind prefecture county, financial institution, and territory chamber of commerce were added, which meant that the territory management had entered a higher level. The upper limit of the population of a first-class county city was directly increased by 5 times, reaching 500,000. Even with the strong territorial characteristics of Shanghai City, it would take a year and a half to reach the upper limit again. What did this mean? It meant that after the county city, if the territory wanted to achieve rapid development, it would have to plunder people from outside. It would take a long time to rely on refugees. It was precisely because of this that Ouyang Shua implemented the strategy of breeding poisonous insects in the Lianzhou Basin. The purpose was to store enough population in the Lianzhou Basin in preparation for the promotion of the territory. Along with the upper limit of population, the territory area also increased. It occupied a fifth of the land in the Lianzhou Basin, which meant that Yongye County, Guangshui County, Yishui County, and Gushin County would officially be under the jurisdiction of the territory. After the county city, the number of basic buildings decreased abruptly. There were only a pitiful 3 new basic buildings. Among the 3 buildings, the Barbican was a necessary facility for the construction of the outer city wall. The Art Academy was also simple. Just like the Chess Academy, it could be built directly in the Southwest University China Hall. The only condition was that one had to spend 2,000 gold coins to purchase a blueprint of the Art Academy. Of course, the prerequisite was that there must be at least one high-level painter. This was easy. Among the scholars who immigrated from Xuanzhou, there were ready-made painters, so Ouyang Shua did not need to worry. Lastly, the distribution center symbolized the transformation of Shanghai City from a self-sufficient city to a central city. Its influence began to spread to the surrounding prefectures and counties. Finally, there was the library rewarded by the system. The library was designated by Ouyang Shua to be inside the Southwest University China Hall. It would serve as the library of the Southwest University China Hall. As for the specific attributes, Ouyang Shua did not have the time to check them. In any case, it must be extraordinary for the system to take it out as a reward. To be continued. Chapter 292. Following the promotion of the territory, the Marquis of Lian Province's estate also underwent earth-shattering changes. After the promotion, the size of the Lord's mansion had increased by more than 5 times, and it truly had the grandeur of a marquis's mansion. There were no less than 5 rows of courtyards. There was a main gate, a corner gate, a screen wall, a drooping flower gate, and so on. There were also corridors, passageways, halls of all kinds. There were inverted rooms, side rooms, cross courtyards, and bungalows. The area was so large, and there were so many courtyards that even the owner, Ouyang Shua, was confused. With the Chuehua Gate as the boundary, Marquis Lianzhou's mansion was divided into 2 parts, the outer court and the inner court. The outer court consisted of the main hall, the Hall of Literary Glory, and the Hall of Martial Meritocrats. The functions of the 3 halls were basically the same as the previous courtyard. Ouyang Shua moved out of the Hall of Literary Splendor and built an elegant courtyard in the outer court as his study. It would also be his office in the future, so he wouldn't have to work together with the other bureau chiefs anymore. In the inner court, other than the courtyard where Ouyang Shua resided, there was also a drill ground specially built for him to practice martial arts. Apart from the Imperial Guard Brigade, the Martial Heroic Palace also had a courtyard for Bai Qi and the other generals to work. As a great general, if Bai Qi was not in the barracks, he would be handling military affairs here. All in all, after the upgrade, the functions of the Lianzhou Marquis' mansion were truly perfect and orderly. After the promotion, the territory was bound to set off a military and political revolution. In terms of military affairs, following Bai Qi's appointment and the establishment of the 3 great divisions, there will not be any major changes for the time being. At most, there will be the establishment of the City Guards Brigade and the Special Forces. The key was the adjustment of the political structure. That afternoon, Ouyang Shua summoned the 3 directors, Fan Zhongyan, Tian Wenjing, and Cui Yingyu, for a meeting. The location of the meeting was Ouyang Shua's study. After the secretary, laying by Nanpu, poured tea for the three directors, he tactfully left the study and waited outside the door. He knew that this meeting was unusual. What puzzled by Nanpu was that among the five directors, Liang, the director of military affairs, and Jue, the director of the resource reserve, had not received an invitation to the meeting. If it was said that Liang, who was half a member of the military, did not participate in this meeting, it would be understandable. But why was Jue not allowed to participate? Did Chief Shun receive the cold shoulder from the Marquis? Bai Nanpu shuddered, not daring to think any further. Ouyang Shua didn't know in the slightest that his actions had been analyzed by the secretary in countless versions, and even if he knew, he probably wouldn't have the mood to pay attention to it. Marquis, what do you think? Tell me your thoughts on the future political structure of the territory. Fan Zhongyan and the other two were mentally prepared for this. They knew that every time the territory was upgraded, the Marquis would spend a lot of money. What was different was that the Marquis did not directly propose the reform plan this time. Instead, he wanted to hear their opinions. If the Marquis wanted them to speak, they had to speak, and they had to come up with a way to do it. Otherwise, how could they be worthy of such a high position? Fan Zhongyan was the first to speak. This humble subject believes that the first step in adjusting the political structure is to separate Marquis Lianzhou's manor from Shanghai City. This will highlight the central authority of Marquis Lianzhou's manor and clarify the relationship between subordinates. Before, county and Marquis of Lithe Marquis under the same government. After the advancement, Shanghai City would only be the administrative center of the territory. It would be inappropriate for them to mix together like this. If the Lian Province Marquis Mansion and Shanghai City are separated, then what is the relationship between Shanghai City and Tianfeng County and the other subsidiary territories? Ouyang Shua asked. Since they're going to separate, we need to do it thoroughly. We need to change the term subordinate. This lowly subject suggests that we implement a three-tier system of governance: prefecture, and county, in order to clarify the relationship between subordinates. Ouyang Shua's eyes lit up. Tell me more. The entire Shanghai territory can be divided into a county. Let's call it Shanghai County. The Marquis Manor is equivalent to the military governor's office. It controls the military and politics of Shanghai County. Below Shanghai County, there will be several prefectures. In the west, with Tianfeng County as the center, there will be Tianfeng Prefecture. It will be governed by Yongye and Guangshui counties. In the central region, with Shanghai City as the center, the Shanghai Prefecture or the Capital Magistrate Prefecture could be established. The administrative center would be Shanghai City, and the Blindpool District and Yuyi District would be under it. In the east, Yuyi and Gushin counties will be governed by county. What about Beihai County? Inyu asked. Beihai County is located outside of Lianzhou Basin. It has a unique location and can be governed by itself. Ouyang Shua nodded. I agree with Sven's plan, but I need to add 3 points. Firstly, the territory's next strategic goal is to unify Lianzhou Basin. Therefore, the administrative planning should be based on the Lianzhou Basin, and the entire Lianzhou Basin should be designated as Lianzhou County. Secondly, since Tianfeng County will be governed by Tianfeng Prefecture, it should be renamed Tianfeng City, and so on. Thirdly, it's not suitable to have too many prefectures in a county, for is the most suitable. In the future, Lianzhou County will be divided into 5 prefectures. Therefore, Beihai County can be renamed Beihai City. It will be governed by the Marquis Manor, but it will not be governed by itself. Marquis is wise. Fan Zhongyan said sincerely. Please decide on the name of Shanghai Prefecture. Let's call it Shanghai Prefecture. Ouyang Shua did not bite off more than he could chew. Yes. After Fan Zhongyan finished speaking, Tian Wenjing stood up and said, I have an idea about Shanghai Prefecture. Oh. Ouyang Shua knew that Tian Wenjing was usually a man of few words. Once he spoke, he would definitely have a good plan. Shanghai City, Pool Water County, and Yuyi County are 3 cities. They're located to the south of Lianzhou Basin and are very close to each other. Moreover, The bridge connecting the three cities has been completed. Rather than saying three cities, it's more like a giant city. Therefore, I suggest that we remove Poolwater County and Yui County and merge the three cities into one. We will call it Shanghai City. Only such a giant city is worthy of being the territory's administrative center. Tian Wenjing's words were indeed shocking. Ouyang Shuo nodded. Tian Wenjing's idea coincided with his original plan for the two subsidiary territories. Only such a giant city was worthy of being the capital of a country in the future. All right, let's go with Yangon's plan. The three of them discussed and basically solved the structure of the territory. The remaining work would naturally be handled by the administrative office. Ouyang Shuo's idea did not stop there. He continued, other than the restructuring of the counties, the structure of the marquee residence of Lianzhou should also be adjusted. Fan Zhongyan and Tian Wenjing looked at each other and shuddered. Their political senses were very sharp. They immediately linked this matter to Shun Zhui's absence. As expected, Ouyang Shuo wanted to make a move on the Resource Reserve Department. He said, after being promoted to a county, the existence of the Resource Reserve Department is no longer suitable. It's time for it to die. I have decided to officially disband the Resource Reserve Department. The Saltfield Department, Resource Department, and Carriage Department will be placed elsewhere. The Saltfield Department will be under the jurisdiction of Beihai City. The Northern Sunset Salt Field will also be under the jurisdiction of Beihai City. The profits will be handed over to the Finance Department. Ouyang Shuo's decision to release the biggest contributor to the territory's finances, the Northern Sunset Salt Field, was a sign of confidence. The era where the Northern Sunset Salt Field supported the territory's finances independently was gone. The Resource Department will be disbanded. The logging and quarries will be placed under the jurisdiction of the local government. The mining field will be placed under the jurisdiction of the Military Affairs Department. The granary and Wolf Mountain Mine will be placed under the jurisdiction of the Finance Department. The rest of the resources will be given to the merchants. The Carriage Department will be disbanded. The Storm Valley Military Horse Farm will be placed under the jurisdiction of the Military Affairs Department. The Carriage Department and the pier will be placed under the jurisdiction of the Finance Department. At the same time, the Carriage Department and merchant ships will be released. Merchants will be allowed to invest. Ouyang Shuo's adjustments not only streamlined the organization, but also further liberalized the territory's intervention in the economy. He further expanded the scope of investment and stimulated the development of the private sector. The entry of Huchuan-ji Chamber of Commerce and Chui Family Chamber of Commerce was an opportunity. At this point, the territory's government affairs were centered around the Administration Department, the Interior Department, and the Finance Department. The Finance Department's authority was further strengthened in this round of adjustments. After confirming the political structure, the next step was the most crucial personnel adjustment. Ouyang Shuo had already appointed Wei Ran as the magistrate of the Shanghai Prefecture. There was nothing to discuss. What needed to be arranged was the former Zhao Dexian and Zhou Haichun of Yuyu County. The magistrate of Tianfeng Prefecture was a focal point. The current Tianfeng County magistrate, Zhao Duong, would definitely not be able to take on this responsibility. Someone else had to be selected. Next was the arrangements made by Shan Zhui and the others after the Resource Reserve Department was disbanded. Does anyone have any recommendations for the magistrate of Tianfeng Prefecture? Ouyang Shuo asked. Fan Zhongyan and the others looked at each other. This kind of personnel arrangement was too sensitive. They did not want to be involved. Marquis Holy Judgment. Why? Just say it, just say it. Ouyang Shuo did not want to let them off so easily. What about Shun Zhui? Tian Wenjing asked. Shun Zhui could be considered as half his student. Now that he had been relieved of his position, he still wanted to find a good job for Shun Zhui. Ouyang Shuo shook his head and said, Shun Zhui still needs more experience. He is not strong enough to take on the government affairs. Let him be the Yongye County Magistrate. Although Ouyang Shuo thought highly of Shun Zhui, he did not want to spoil him. Fan Zhongyan looked at Chui Yingyu strangely and said, I recommend the Yishui County Magistrate Chui Shaoxi. Fan Zhongyan's suggestion was interesting. Everyone knew that Chui Shaoxi was Chui Ingyo's cousin. If it was really adopted, the Chui siblings would be in high positions. In addition to the branch of the Chui family chamber of commerce, the Chui family's influence in the territory would be different. They would become a powerful force. The meaning behind it was really subtle. Chui Ingyu raised her eyes and looked down. She did not move an inch. Ouyang Shuo smiled, as if he did not see the meaning behind it. He said, County Magistrate Chui has managed Yishui County well. He is suitable to be the magistrate of Tianfeng Prefecture. It is decided. Yes. At this point, the general situation had been decided. All that was left was the specific personnel arrangement. To be continued. Chapter 293. The next day, the manor of Marquis Lianzhou issued an official document announcing the appointment and removal of relevant personnel. Wei Ran became the magistrate of Shanghai Prefecture and took charge of the central region of the territory. Chui Shaoxi moved to the right and became the magistrate of Tianfeng Prefecture and took charge of the western part of the territory. Gu Xiuan became the magistrate of Beihai City and took charge of the coastal region. Chui Shaoxi's promotion even alerted the Chui family in Dali. The local officials paid more attention to Wei Ran and Bai Qi, the father's son-in-law pair. Their influence in the territory's military and political affairs was shocking. At the county level, Shun Jie, the former head of the Resource Reserve Division, was transferred to the Yongye County Magistrate. Zhao Daxian, the former Pool Water County Magistrate, was transferred to the Guangshui County Magistrate, and the former Yi County Magistrate, Zhou Haichun, was transferred to the Yishui County Magistrate. Among the three districts, Yishui County had the greatest development potential because of the integration token. Chui Shaoxi's promotion was a clear proof of that. Moreover, it was guarding the eastern gate of the territory, so its strategic position was very crucial. Therefore, among the three county magistrates, Zhou Haichun's career was the most promising. During Zhou Haichun's tenure as the magistrate of Yu County, he often faced threats from nomadic tribes, so he was more vigilant. This was also one of the main reasons why Ouyang Shuo chose him to be the magistrate of Yishui County. In addition, Zhou Haichun was a professional, so his future was limitless. Du Xiaolan, the former Director General of the Supplies Department, was transferred to be the Director General of the Finance Department. The former Director General of the Chariot Department, Zheng Shanpao, was transferred to be the commanding officer of the Storm Valley Military Horse Farm. The former Assistant Director General of the Supplies Department and commanding officer of the Wolf Mountain Mine, Yuan Xiaoping, resigned from his position and continued to be the commanding officer of the Wolf Mountain Mine. Zheng Shanpao and Yuan Xiaoping were both talented officials, and it was difficult for them to advance in the bureaucracy. Now that they each focused on their own industry, it could be said that they were doing well. Fan Zhongyan was quite dissatisfied with Du Xiaolan's appointment. Du Xiaolan and Qian Lifei were both Chui Ingyo's students. If the two of them were to work in the finance department at the same time, it would be suspicious of them forming a clique. Thus, Fan Zhongyan objected. Ouyang Shuo believed that Ingyu would have a sense of propriety and overrule Fan Zhongyan's suggestion. On the morning of the 6th of December, Ouyang Shuo summoned Wei Ran, the magistrate of the Mountain Sea Prefecture, to discuss the establishment of the magistrate government. Because it involved the division of authority between the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion and the Mountain Sea Prefecture, Fan Zhongyan and the other two division chiefs participated together. After the merger, Shanghai City was divided into three major districts: Shanghai District, Pool District, and Friendship District. The Shanghai Prefecture was located in the Shanghai District, which was also the main district of Shanghai City. The government agencies left behind by the Pool and Friendship counties were reorganized into district-level government agencies with the same level as the county-level agencies. After the establishment of the Mountain Sea Prefecture, some of the functions and powers that were originally under the jurisdiction of the Marquis of Lian Province had to be delegated. Firstly, the construction authority of Shanghai City. The overall planning of Shanghai City was handled by the construction department of the administrative department, while the specific construction and detailed planning were handled by the Shanghai Prefecture. Secondly, Shanghai City's cultural and educational authority. The Southwest University China Hall and the Temple of the Yellow Emperor were under the direct jurisdiction of Marquis Lianzhou's mansion. The private schools, and temples in Shanghai City were all under the jurisdiction of Shanghai Mansion. Thirdly, the responsibility of managing the refugees in Mountain Sea City would fall under the jurisdiction of the Mountain Sea Prefecture, and the corresponding basic welfare would also be provided by the Mountain Sea Prefecture. The Civil Affairs Department of the Internal Affairs Department would be responsible for coordinating the population of the Mountain Sea Territory. Fourth, Shanghai City's public security. The Shanghai District's core area was under the responsibility of the Imperial Guard Brigade. Shanghai City's external defense was under the responsibility of the newly formed City Guard Division. Shanghai District's inner city was under the responsibility of the Public Order Division of the Internal Affairs Department. The remaining areas were under the Shanghai Prefecture's responsibility. Fifth, Shanghai City's tax collection authority. Shanghai City's taxes would be handed over to the Shanghai Prefecture, and the Shanghai Prefecture would then hand over a certain percentage to the Finance Department. The industries under the Finance Department's Industrial Department would still be under the jurisdiction of the Industrial Department. What followed was a series of personnel changes. Marquis Lianzhou's mansion's authority had been delegated to the Shanghai Prefecture, so a portion of the administrative staff will be transferred to the Shanghai Prefecture to strengthen the structure of the Shanghai Prefecture. The scholars who migrated from Xuanzhou were also arranged to serve in the Shanghai Prefecture. Ouyang Shuo no longer asked about the specific personnel arrangements, and the three division heads and the prefectural magistrate, Wei Ran, worked together to resolve them. With Wei Ran's ability, Ouyang Shuo believed that he would be able to straighten out the relationships between the various parties in no time. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shuo went to the Southwest University China Hall to check out the library that the system rewarded him with. The library was located by the Full Moon Lake, and not far from it was the newly built lecture room courtyard. Name, library type, special building, function, access to all the ancient books in the world, ancient and modern. Characteristic, territory's cultural index increases by 15. Description. This is a building specially built for the purpose of storing books. The building contains all the ancient books in China, and it can be accessed by students at any time. Ouyang Shuo was enlightened. Wasn't this the equivalent of a modern university's library? Moreover, it was the most comprehensive library in China, containing all the ancient and modern books. Its value was immeasurable. Based on Ouyang Shuo's understanding of the game, he estimated that the books in the library were all ancient books that Gaia had scanned and moved to the library while searching for information in China. It was not hard to imagine how attractive the existence of the library would be to the people of the 100 schools of thought, and how important it would be to elevate the academic status of the Southwest University China Hall. The next step was to choose a building master for the library. Ouyang Shuo immediately thought of one person who was most suitable, and that was Jiang Shang, who lived in seclusion on Fallen Star Island. Ever since his first visit to Jiang Shang, Ouyang Shuo had never set foot on Fallen Star Island again. Even so, Jiang Shang's every move was still within Ouyang Shuo's grasp. Other than taking care of Jiang Shang's daily life, the servants arranged by Jiang Shang's side were also in charge of being his eyes and ears. They would regularly report Jiang Shang's actions to his secretary, Lang by Nanpu. After Lang by Nanpu sorted out the information, he would present it to Ouyang Shuo in the form of a letter. After living in seclusion on Fallen Star Island, Jiang Shang had never stepped out of the island. Usually, he was either fishing by the lake or leaning on a rock, reading. He was quite carefree. The territory's library was limited, so Ouyang Shuo could only contribute the books that the system had refreshed in his study to Jiang Shang. After all, the number of books was limited, and Jiang Shang had no books to read. Ouyang Shuo was confident that Jiang Shang would not be able to resist the temptation of the library. Once again on Fallen Star Island, Ouyang Shuo's state of mind was different. He no longer hoped that Jiang Shang would become an official in the Mountain Sea Territory. As long as this old man was willing to make use of his influence as 100 schools grandmaster to recruit talents for the Mountain Sea Territory, it would be fine. That's right, Ouyang Shuo regarded Jiangshang as a parasol tree that attracted phoenixes. Jiangshang was leaning on a rock, reading. When he saw Ouyang Shuo, he was not as cold and distant as before. Instead, he asked calmly, "Marquis, what brings you here? Does great-grandfather know that there's a new library by the full moon lake?" Ouyang Shuo did not beat around the bush. When talking to such an intelligent person, apart from grasping his needs, everything else was meaningless. Library? Jiangshang had never left Fallen Star Island, so naturally, he did not know. That's right, a library that contains all the books from the past to the present. Is Marquis making fun of me? Jiangshang was somewhat doubtful. Ouyang Shuo shook his head and said, "I'm not lying. If great-grandfather doesn't believe me, you can go and take a look for yourself." A trace of excitement flashed in Jiangshang's eyes. Then he became doubtful and said, "Marquis, such a trick can't trick me out of Fallen Star Island. How can there be such a library in the world? Great-grandfather, there's no need to test me." Ouyang Shuo looked confident. "I'm not here to ask great-grandfather to become an official. Instead, I hope that great-grandfather will become the owner of a library." The temptation of books was incomparably great. Jiangshang was prepared to take a risk. "All right, I'll believe you this time and follow you out of the island to take a look. If it's really as Marquis said, and there's such a library, I won't go back on my words and am willing to be the owner." Ouyang Shuo nodded and pretended not to understand Jiangshang's meaning. "Please." Jiangshang did not tidy up and directly followed Ouyang Shuo on a small boat out of Fallen Star Island. When he arrived at the library, Jiangshang was already somewhat convinced. When he saw the tens of thousands of books in a library, he was already intoxicated and unable to extricate himself. "Great-grandfather, how are the books here? As vast as the sea." Jiangshang muttered to himself and then said, "Don't worry, Marquis. I won't go back on my words." Ouyang Shuo nodded and left the library alone. From then on, the library gained a legendary old man and a caretaker with a terrifying background. After coming out of the library, Ouyang Shuo turned and went to the School of Architecture. On the way, he happened to meet Sun Xiaoye. "Ouyang, how come you have time to come to the school?" Sun Xiaoye teased, a trace of imperceptible excitement flashing in her eyes. Ever since Sun Xiaoye came to the territory, Ouyang Shuo was either fighting outside or inspecting everywhere. Even if he stayed in the territory, he would spend most of his time in the Marquis' mansion, discussing matters with a group of officials. "I can take a look and casually stroll around." "Come on, great lord, you still have the mood to stroll around? Tell me, what's the matter? Maybe I can even help." Sun Xiaoye speechlessly looked at the man in front of her. One look, and it was obvious that he did not mean what he said. Ouyang Shuo was thick-skinned and said nonchalantly, "Is Elderly here? I'm looking for him." "You're looking for the dean? Don't tell me it's to discuss the planning of Shanghai City." "Smart." Ouyang Shuo could not help but admire Sun Xiaoye's sharp mind. "Of course," Sun Xiaoye said with a proud face. "Let's go, I'll take you there." She turned around and led the way with Ouyang Shuo behind her. On the way, Sun Xiaoye talked about the planning of the city. "Actually, the school has already started the preliminary design of Shanghai City. I just don't know if it matches your vision." Ouyang Shuo nodded. No one was a fool. In Elderly's office, Ouyang Shuo met with Elderly and explained the integration plan of Shanghai City's Trinity. "How generous," Elderly said with emotion. "It seems that the plan will have to be restarted. Thank you for your hard work, Elderly." Ouyang Shuo was somewhat ashamed. Sigh. To be able to preside over the planning and design of such a large city, this old man is very fortunate. There's no need to talk about hard work. Elderly was somewhat excited and full of energy. "Then I'll wait and see." Ouyang Shuo was not pretentious. To be continued. Chapter 294. According to Old Li, the overall plan would have to wait until after the new year. Ouyang Shuo pondered for a moment and said, "Can we design the city wall first?" "Why?" Old Li was puzzled. The city wall is the core of the plan. It takes a lot of time and labor. There are still 4 months before the spring sowing. I hope to finish the city wall before the next spring sowing. Not bad. Oldly nodded with satisfaction and praised Ouyang Shua's action of cherishing the people's labor. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Oldly sighed with emotion. I will immediately gather the students and work through the night. I will try to come up with the city wall design within a week. Ouyang Shua cupped his hands. Thank you. The two discussed the design requirements and specific requirements of the city wall. Unknowingly, the sun was already setting. Ouyang Shua stood up and left the office. Let me see you out. Sun Xiaoya chased after him. The two of them walked on the shady path, looking at each other in silence. Neither of them wanted to break this rare silence. Perhaps it was just like the old saying, silence is better than words. Ouyang, Sun Xiaoya wanted to say something before leaving. What's wrong? Forget it, it's nothing, Sun Xiaoya said dispiritedly. She turned back first with a flustered footstep. A cool breeze blew past, stirring up ripples in one's heart. Ouyang Shua looked at Sun Xiaoya's receding figure and sighed with a melancholy expression. It was dinner time when he returned to the manor. In the courtyard, Binger had already finished school and was playing with Whitey. Whitey was the white wolf that Luo Shixin gave her. It was very close to Binger and was inseparable, even when she went to school. Ouyang Shua suspected that Binger had some kind of psychic talent. Why did all the spirit beasts get close to her? No matter if it was the Nyin cub or Heya, there was no exception. Brother, you're back. Binger ran over. During this period of time, the little girl's rebellious phase seemed to have passed. She had become a lot more obedient, which made Ouyang Shua very happy. Yes, the brother and sister chatted and laughed as they walked to the side hall for dinner. After advancing to the county capital, Ouyang Shua's busy state continued. Every day, he was busy meeting with the officials and generals to discuss the territory's military and political affairs. The affairs of a prefecture were complicated. Although Ouyang Shua had already set the general tone and the specific government affairs would be handled by the three divisions, there were still some matters that required him, the Lord, to personally make decisions. Officials who were transferred to another post would always come to the Marquis Lian Manor to bid their farewells to Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua naturally couldn't be disrespectful to these important ministers that guarded his territory, and he would personally receive every single one of them and instruct them in order to calm their hearts and strengthen their will. Fortunately, Ouyang Shua's energy became more and more abundant as he cultivated the inner canon of the Yellow Emperor. After discussing politics in the day, he could still stay in the study alone at night and write at a great speed, planning for the next step of the territory's development. Ouyang Shua's busy schedule made the ladies in the mansion feel sorry for him. Song Jia even specially came back from the sect once and personally instructed Zi Su to prepare supper every night and send it to the study room. On December 9th, Ouyang Shua summoned by Qi and Zhao Siu. The Shanghai County City Guard Brigade was reorganized into the three divisions, and Zhao Siu suddenly became a commander without an army. These days, he was busy with the military officer's recruitment, and when he was summoned by Ouyang Shua, he hurried over. During the Battle of the Evil Lion Ridge, Zhao Sihu's military leadership skills made Ouyang Shua look at him in a new light, and he specially gave him the secret manual 5 Tiger Saber Scripture as a reward. After 2 months, Zhao Sihu had already grasped the basics, and his body faintly emitted the might of a ferocious tiger. How is the recruitment going? Is it going well? Ouyang Shua asked. It's going well. Everyone is very enthusiastic about joining the army. The physical qualities of the territory's youth are also very good, and those who come to the recruitment basically meet the requirements. Zhao Sihu was somewhat excited. Ouyang Shua nodded. The various territorial characteristics of the Shanghai territory were gradually showing their power, and this was their foundation. After the small talk, Ouyang Shua began to get to the main topic and said, I call the two of you here for 2 matters. Zhao Sihu cupped his fists and said, Please enlighten me, Marquis. To be honest, Zhao Sihu had no idea about the position of the City Guard Brigade, and he didn't know what the Marquis was thinking. It was naturally more than he could ask for the Marquis's advice. First, it's about the establishment of the Shanghai City Guards. I'm thinking of forming a City Guard division, and the deadline will be half a year. What do the two of you think? Zhao Sihu was the person involved, so it wasn't appropriate for him to express his opinion. However, he was secretly excited. He didn't expect that the Marquis would make an even bigger move after dissolving the 3 city guard brigades. Bai Qi nodded and said, "With the future scale of Shanghai City, a city guard division is definitely not much." Just as Bai Qi said, Shanghai City was the heart of the territory, so how could it not be heavily guarded? Although Ouyang Shua didn't think that anyone would be able to attack Shanghai City, it would be an invisible deterrent and guarantee of safety. If not, how could the people of Shanghai City be pacified? Ouyang Shua wasn't someone who was eager for quick success, and he wouldn't be militaristic or recklessly expand his army. The half-year deadline was to give the territory a buffer so that it wouldn't be too much of a burden on the territory's economy. After the 3 cities were merged, the number of refugees that spawned every day would reach 1,310, and the population would increase by 40,000 in a month. This was because the merging of the 3 cities was only Ouyang Shua's wishful thinking, and it wasn't recognized by the system. Therefore, when calculating the upper limit of the population, the 3 cities were still calculated separately. Although the City Guard Division will be built from scratch, I hope that the City Guard Division's combat power and military quality won't be weaker than the 3 major divisions. As for how they will be trained, the 2 of you will be in charge. Even with Zhao Sihu's courage, he was put in a difficult position when he heard the Marquis's request. It was common knowledge that for a new army to have real combat power, apart from daily hard training, actual combat was also very important. It could even be the key to success or failure. Based on the territory situation, the 3 most threatening areas were each garrisoned by a field division. No matter how they rotated, it wouldn't be the City Guard Division's turn to enter the battlefield. Why? Is there a problem? Zhao Sihu gritted his teeth and said, "I'm a boorish man, so I'll just speak the truth. If it's just training, I'm not afraid of anyone, but if it's actual combat, I can't guarantee anything. I'm afraid that I'll ruin the Marquis's plan." Ouyang Shua nodded and turned to look at Bai Qi. He asked, "What solution does the great general have?" "The only way is to have the City Guard Division be stationed in the 3 major divisions' camps in rotation and participate in actual combat," Bai Qi said without hesitation. "All right, we'll do as you say. The formation of the City Guard Division will be commanded by the great general, and Zhao Sihu will be in charge of the specific execution." Ouyang Shua made the final decision on the command. The great general Bai Qi became Ouyang Shua's right-hand man, and he was in charge of almost all the specific military affairs in the territory. The military office, on the other hand, was overshadowed by Bai Qi and gradually became a logistics department. A general like Bai Qi wasn't suitable to be in charge of the military office, and the battlefield was his home. Ouyang Shua's original intention of establishing the military office was to effectively check and balance the generals in the army and form a kind of balance. Otherwise, the generals in the army would be like runaway horses, and it would be easy for them to get out of Ouyang Shua's control. Unfortunately, due to the lack of a capable leader, the military office had always been half dead, and he was very disappointed. Following the continuous expansion of the territory's army, Ouyang Shua no longer had the energy to personally participate in the specific formation of the army like before, and could only delegate the power to the generals. The evil consequence of this was that his control over the army had weakened. Fortunately, the brigade commanders of the 3 major divisions were basically his old subordinates, and there wouldn't be any problems in the short term. Ouyang Shua put aside his thoughts and continued. The City Guard Division's barracks will be moved to the outer city. The barracks in the core area will be vacated for the Imperial Brigade. Zhao Sihu nodded. He had long expected such a day would come. The City Guard Division and the Imperial Brigade had different positions, and it was decided that the 2 armies would be in charge of the outside and the inside. It was only a matter of time before the core area was handed over to the Imperial Brigade. When the Marquis of Lianzhou and the Mountain Sea Prefecture divided the security areas, the foreshadowing had already been laid down. The Imperial Brigade was another trump card for Ouyang Shua to control the army. As long as this most elite army was firmly in his hands, he would have the confidence to face any challenges. When the major divisions had stabilized, it would be time for the Imperial Brigade to expand. Gaia's first year, 12th month, recruit barracks in the western suburbs. Of the 3,250 participating soldiers, excluding those who died in the Battle of Chongping, there were 2,470 elites left. They were about to face the first round of assessment. The subjects of the assessment included the 5-kilometer weight-bearing run, parallel bars, 400-meter steeplechase, and push-ups. During the recruit training period, all the soldiers had been repeatedly trained in the relevant subjects and were no longer unfamiliar with them. The crux of the assessment was whether the soldiers could reach the standards set by the instructors. According to statistics, the soldiers participating in the selection were all rank 8 elite soldiers and above, and rank 10 elite soldiers accounted for more than 10% of them. They could be called the strongest elites of the territory's army. Ouyang Shua came to the recruit barracks to witness the entire assessment process, and Bai Qi accompanied him. According to the instructor's captain, Viper, Bai Qi's entry into the recruit barracks had given them a lot of inspiration. Some of the assessment standards were more reasonable under Bai Qi's suggestion. After a day of assessment, only 1,845 soldiers passed, and the elimination rate reached 25%. The eliminated soldiers would return to their original units. At the end of the assessment, the mission of the Western Suburbs recruit barracks was completed, and it would be dismantled the next day. The soldiers who passed the assessment would be transferred to the established training base to undergo a new round of devilish training. Inspired by the modern training model of the recruit barracks, Bai Qi had already started to compile the Army's training program and the Army's code of conduct, and was prepared to implement it throughout the Army. To be continued. Chapter 295. To the north of the 100,000 Mountains, at the junction of Lingnan and Guangxi provinces, there was a place called Wuzhou. Half a year ago, a mysterious tribe suddenly appeared in the originally barren Wuzhou. Under the leadership of the tribe leader, they cut their way through the thistles and thorns, wiped out the roving bandits, built a city, built a stronghold, and planted fields. The leader of the stronghold was a very impressive figure and enjoyed high prestige among the mountain barbarians. With the establishment of the stronghold, the mountain barbarians nearby heard the news and rushed to the stronghold to see the mysterious leader. The hundreds of mountain barbarian tribes that had lived in the 100,000 mountains for generations had since found a new home. One after another, the tribes began to migrate to the stronghold of Wuzhou without a trace of hesitation. As time passed, the 55 mountain barbarian tribes in the northern area all migrated to Wuzhou. Even the largest tribe of 10,000 people was no exception. Last month, the wave of migration began to spread to the southern area. With the influx of mountain barbarians, the stronghold expanded again and again, finally developing into a giant city that dominated Wuzhou. On top of the stronghold, the black phoenix flag fluttered in the wind, spreading its wings and flying. Seeing that it was almost winter, the weeds withered, birds disappeared, and the wilderness presented a scene of desolation. Located in the southern bay of Guangxi, the Lianzhou Basin had obvious characteristics of a marine monsoon climate, but it had no fate with winter. Entering December, the temperature remained over 20 degrees Celsius. The Lianzhou Basin seemed calm, but in fact, undercurrents were surging. According to the feedback from the Military Intelligence Department, the tribes of the grasslands had stopped their civil war, and there were signs of secret cooperation. Under Bai Qi's instructions, the 2nd Division frequently appeared in the grasslands under the name of training to intimidate the tribes and try to sow discord and draw them to their side. The western part of the Tianji tribe's town had been rebuilt. Adding the eastern part and the Khan's personal guards, the total strength reached 12,000 people, which was equal to the 2nd Division. The 7 medium-sized tribes each had no less than 3,000 troops, which added up to more than 20,000 people. Before the war, the grasslands tribes could issue a temporary assembly order. With the nomadic tribes' tradition of all citizens being soldiers, it was not difficult to double the size of the army. If the grasslands tribes really united, the 2nd Division alone could not suppress them. Duanren County in the east was also worrying. Limited by Ba Dao's title, Duanren County could not be promoted to a third-class county. The strength of the Mountain Sea territory made Ba Dao restless. In order to protect his territory, he could only take risks and seek instant benefits. Ba Dao contacted the Yin Huang Alliance as he furiously built up his territory. Apart from the 3 first-class subsidiary territories, the other 9 second-class subsidiary territories had all been completed, and they were steadily advancing towards a first-class county. The most direct benefit was that the population of the territory was increasing day by day, creating conditions for the expansion of the army. In addition to the soldiers from the mountain barbarian tribes and the funds provided by the gold mine, Duanren County's military strength was growing day by day. The size of the army had reached a division, which was comparable to the previous Shanghai County. If Ba Dao was walking on a tightrope, then Ouyang Shua was playing with fire. Duanren County's current development was not unrelated to Ouyang Shua's deliberate indulgence. After taking over Tianfeng County, it wasn't that Ouyang Shua didn't have the opportunity to take over Duanren County. It was just that he didn't want his goot breeding strategy to be stillborn. So he gave up and allowed Duanren County to continue. If he didn't restrain himself, he might be nurturing a tiger and inviting calamity. What worried Ouyang Shua the most was the unexpected event that occurred in the depths of the Grand Myriad Mountains. A large number of mountain barbarian tribes were migrating to the depths of the mountains. Lung Qian, the leader of the first military intelligence group of the Military Intelligence Division, who was in charge of the Eastern Region's intelligence, had personally led a team into the depths of the mountains to investigate. Ouyang Shua had a premonition that an old enemy was staring at him from the depths of the mountains. Just as a storm was brewing in Lian Prefecture Basin, an old man quietly arrived at Shanghai City. The old man was in his 50s. He had a wide forehead, a round face, eyebrows, and a mustache. He was dressed very simply in coarse hem clothes and wore a green headscarf. His scholarly elegance exuded a sense of awe-inspiring dignity. After entering the city, the old man toured around the city with great interest. He couldn't help but secretly nod when he saw the prosperous scene of the commercial street and the orderly life of the common people. Soon after, the old man walked into the Southwest University China Hall and met a scholar who was walking toward him. The scholar cupped his hands and said, "Dare I ask, this old man has heard that there is a library in your noble city. May I know where it is?" The young scholar was a student of the Southwest University China School of Scripture. Seeing the old man's ancient greeting, he didn't dare to be negligent and quickly returned the greeting. "The library is built by the full moon lake. Let me take you there." Ouyang Shua had already said that the library would never be secretive and would be open to everyone in the world. Therefore, people like the old man who asked for directions were not rare in the Southwest University China Hall. "Thank you." The young scholar brought the old man to the library and turned to leave. The old man walked into the library. He looked a little excited and a little nervous. He was none other than the war sage, Sun Wu. Later generations respectfully called him Sun Tzu. Together with the 2 sages Confucius and Laozi, they were known as the 3 brightest stars in the world of thought in the late spring and autumn period. Sun Wu and the library master, Jiang Shang, had a deep relationship. Firstly, Jiang Shang was respected as the founder of the school of militarism, and Sun Wu was the representative of the school of militarism. Secondly, Jiang Shang was the founder of the Qi Kingdom, and Sun Wu was a person from Qi Kingdom. Tracing back to the source, the 2 of them had a deep relationship. Therefore, after learning that Jiang Shang was the library master, Sun Wu immediately made use of the system's mysterious relay station and traveled thousands of miles to Shanghai City to pay a visit to Jiang Shang. Strictly speaking, the war sage, Sun Wu could be considered half a hermit. Before the age of 30, Sun Wu lived in seclusion and wrote Sun Tzu's Art of War. After that, he served as a general in the Wu Kingdom for more than 20 years and achieved outstanding military service. After that, he retired and lived in seclusion again to revise his book on the art of war. Throughout his life, he was a legendary figure. The 100 Schools Grandmaster Jiang Shang and the war sage Sun Wu the two sages crossed time and space and met in the library. "Greetings, great-grandfather." Sun Wu performed a disciple's greeting. Jiang Shang leaned to the side and borrowed a famous saying from the Analects of Confucius to cleverly redefine the relationship between the two of them. "Isn't it a good thing to have a friend come from afar?" When the two grandmasters of the school of militarism met, they unconsciously started to talk about the art of war. The more they talked, the more they felt like they had met earlier. Unknowingly, the sun had already set. Jiang Shang turned his head and looked out of the library, lost in thought. The setting sun illuminated half the sky with the reflection of the lake. Although it was already sunset, the red light still shone brightly. He sighed and said, "It's enough to meet a bosom friend in life. I'm extremely fortunate." Sun Wu was also satisfied and had a joyful expression. "How about it? Are you willing to come with me to the island?" "Of course, I don't dare to ask." The two of them laughed as if they were old friends reuniting. There was no need to say anything. Following Jiang Shang to the Fallen Star Island, Sun Wu admired the beautiful scenery of the lake and mountains. He said in admiration, "Such a rural atmosphere. It's a wonderful place to live in seclusion. Great-grandfather is blessed." Jiang Shang shook his head and said with a melancholy expression, "It's all thanks to Marquis Lian Province's good intentions." "Oh." Sun Wu revealed an interested expression and said, "The Shanghai territory is famous in the circle. When I entered the city just now, I casually looked around. It's indeed a well-deserved reputation. Great-grandfather is living in seclusion here. What do you think of this Marquis Lian Province?" "Why? Do you want to become an official here?" "No." Sun Wu shook his head and said, "I have no interest in a military career. I'm willing to learn from great-grandfather and become a hermit. If great-grandfather doesn't mind, I'm willing to live on the island and write books and revise the books of war. I heard that there are more than 10,000 books in the library, and I want to read the later generation's art of war to gain inspiration and make up for my shortcomings. Isn't it a waste for such a great talent to live in seclusion on a small island? Isn't it the same for great-grandfather? I'm different from you. I have a knot in my heart with Marquis Lian Province, so I'm not willing to become an official. Even so, it's hard for me to refuse the great kindness of the book repository master." Jiang Shang said calmly. Sun Wu was silent. After pondering for a long time, he said firmly, "I'm still willing to follow my heart. Rushing to the battlefield with vigor is no longer my pursuit. Carrying forward the art of war is my lifelong wish." Jiang Shang nodded and said, "Of course, it's up to you. This matter can't be forced. I estimate that Marquis Lian Province will come to visit you tomorrow and invite you to become an official. It doesn't matter. I have my own plans. This person is quite broad-minded. He can't be considered an ordinary person. Don't refuse him immediately." Sun Wu's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect Jiang Shang to have such a high evaluation of this Marquis Lian Province. He smiled and said, "After hearing great-grandfather's words, I really want to see it. You won't be disappointed. Moreover, Bai Qi has already been appointed as the Marquis Mansion's general. There's an interesting training system in Shanghai City's army. I'm sure you'll be interested in it." As expected of great-grandfather Jiang, he knew everything in the world without even going out. As they chatted, the two of them talked about the art of war and had a long talk during the night. The next day, Ouyang Shuo received a secret report from the Fallen Star Island servant. It said that a guest in his 50s arrived on the island yesterday. He wore a plain robe and had a long talk with great-grandfather Jiang. After Ouyang Shuo read the secret report, he was inwardly excited. If he wasn't wrong, the 100 schools of thought had finally been officially launched. A person who could talk with Jiang Shang through the night was definitely not an ordinary person. "Come." "Yes." "Go and invite General Bai Qi." "Yes, sir." Ouyang Shuo planned to bring Bai Qi along to visit this mysterious person. He hoped to use Bai Qi as a ready-made example to prove that it was possible to become an official in the Shanghai territory. "Marquis." Bai Qi hurried over. "Come with me to the library." "Oh, did someone come?" Bai Qi's mind was sharp, and he immediately guessed the reason. Bai Qi could be considered as one of the representatives of the militarists. When Jiang Shang was appointed as the head of the library, Bai Qi took the time to visit him. The two of them had an exchange on the art of war and had a very congenial conversation. Not bad. In that case, I'd like to take a look. Chapter 296. In the library by the full moon lake. Jiang Shang and Sun Wu had a long talk last night and had become close friends. When they saw Ouyang Shuo and Bai Qi coming to visit, they smiled at each other. "Greetings, great-grandfather." Jiang Shang nodded and pointed at his companion. "This is Sun Wu." Ouyang Shuo's heart trembled and he hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, war sage." Bai Qi, who was following behind Ouyang Shuo, saw the grandson of a military grandmaster and hurriedly bowed. Sun Wu bowed. "This old man has taken the liberty to come and trouble master to come personally. Thank you for your hospitality. The gates of Shanghai City are always open to the world's talents." Ouyang Shuo said flatteringly. "Mr. has come from afar. I have prepared a house for you in the official district as a token of my sincerity. I hope you will not refuse. Marquis, I appreciate your kindness. Unfortunately, I have no interest in the military and only wish to live in seclusion and accompany great-grandfather on Fallen Star Island. I hope Marquis will agree." Sun Wu refused. Ouyang Shuo's eyes narrowed and he sighed. "Shanghai City does not force talents. Everything is voluntary. If Mr. wishes to live in seclusion, I will not interfere. It is just a pity." He still had this bit of magnanimity. Ouyang Shuo's straightforwardness was beyond Sun Wu's expectations. He immediately had a good impression of him. "Thank you, Marquis. May I ask if Mr. wants to live in seclusion to revise Sun Tzu's art of war?" "Yes." Sun Wu was calm. "Revising the art of war to promote the military doctrine and pass it on to future generations?" "Yes." Sun Wu's eyes narrowed. Ouyang Shuo nodded and suddenly changed the topic. "Mr., what do you think of the Southwest University China Hall? The concept is advanced and educates people." Sun Wu's eyes flashed with a trace of suspicion. "In that case, there is a better place for Mr. to live in seclusion. Please consider it. Please speak. There is an empty space next to the Southwest University China Hall that I have prepared for another school. To govern a place, one must have both civil and military skills. The Southwest University China Hall is a holy land for civil officials, and the other school is a cradle for generals. The Marquis is wise." Sun Wu was confused and asked, "But what does this have to do with my seclusion?" Ouyang Shuo explained. "The planned school is also known as the Army's Martial Lecture Hall. It is an educational institution for the training of Army generals and also a place for military strategists to study martial arts. The Army's Martial Arts Lecture Hall will be divided into infantry, cavalry, engineers, as well as supply and logistics, and will be divided into 3 classes, B and C. Class A and Class B will focus on military subjects after entering the academy, such as topography, city construction, weaponry, military systems, hygiene, and so on. They will also learn military courses, such as the military manuals, rules, and orders of the military. Class C will first learn general subjects and basic military courses, such as Chinese, ethics, machinery drawing, arithmetic, history and geography, infantry drill, military service orders, and so on. After that, they will learn military subjects and basic military courses according to their specialties. After Ouyang Shuo finished speaking, Sun Wu remained silent for a long time. Even Jiang Shang and Bai Qi were entranced by the story. This was especially true for Bai Qi. He was previously in charge of reorganizing the 3 divisions and knew the weakness of the territorial army. Most of the generals in the army came from the wilderness. If they could build such a martial arts lecture hall, it would undoubtedly be a great undertaking. Sun Wu was silent because the book he wrote, The Art of War, basically included all the courses in the martial arts lecture hall. It was an excellent place to spread military theories. Not only that, he could also use the Army's martial arts lecture hall as a platform to practice and perfect his theories. Jiang Shang looked at Ouyang Shuo with a complicated expression, then turned to Sun Wu and said, "Chongqing," as the Marquis said, The Army's martial arts lecture hall is indeed more suitable as a place for you to live in seclusion. Not only that, I promise that once the Army's martial arts lecture hall is completed, I will build another floor and transfer all the books related to the art of war from the library to the Army's martial arts lecture hall. Ouyang Shua threw out another bait. Sun Wu laughed bitterly and said, "The Marquis is indeed amazing. I admit that you have convinced me." Ouyang Shua was overjoyed. Suddenly, he heard the sound of a system notification. System notification. Congratulations to player not wearing anything for successfully persuading the Saint-Tier historical figure, Sun Wu, to come out of seclusion in the Shanghai territory. Special reward: 3,000 achievement points, 15,000 reputation points. Immediately after, there was a series of system notifications. System notification: War Sage Sun Wu has officially settled in the Shanghai territory. Triggering 100 schools of thought. School of the military branch. Military characters will appear in the wilderness one after another. Players, please explore on your own. When the announcement was made, the world was in an uproar. The silent national channel suddenly became lively and was instantly flooded with messages. Boss not wearing, please accept my knee. There's no need to explain a valiant life. Boss not wearing is mighty and domineering. Why are all the benefits taken by not wearing? I, Zhao Ritian, am not satisfied. Previous poster, appraisal complete. Brother Not Wearing's fan club is recruiting. Interested parties, please contact Sister Ruhua. Ruhua, why did you come out? Go home and take your medicine. Brother Not Wearing's fan club is recruiting. Interested parties, please contact Sister Farong Blurg. I'm throwing up. Idiots wait to kneel and lick my boots. After Sun Wu, Wu Qi will definitely be mine. Old Wang is mighty. Hello, everyone. I'm Boss Not Wearing's little brother. My name is Take Off the Windbreaker to Dry Chick. Previous poster. Your name is really fresh and refined. I'm impressed. Brother Not Wearing, your domineering aura has conquered this little sister. Please serve me in bed. The adventure players did not care about the matter. They were happy to complain and watch the commotion. Ouyang Shua had long since become the most dazzling star among the players of the China server. Everyone was used to him unleashing his ultimate moves from time to time. The feudal lords felt a little uncomfortable. Among the 100 schools of thought, the school that the feudal lords valued the most was the school of the military. The representatives of the school of the military, be it Sun Wu and Sima Rongju during the spring and autumn period, Sun Bin, Wu Qi, Wei Liao, Zhao Shi by Qi during the Warring States period, or even Zhang Liang and Han Exen during the early Han dynasty. They never thought that the brightest star of the school of the military, the war sage Sun Wu, would settle down in the Mountain Sea territory so quickly. How could the other feudal lords not beat their chests and stomp their feet? If the other feudal lords knew that Bai Qi was also a general in the Mountain Sea territory, it would probably cause another wave. Apart from jealousy, the feudal lords were also incredibly excited. The system announcement was very clear. Aside from Sun Wu, who had settled down in the Mountain Sea territory, Sun Bin, Wu Qi, Wei Liao, and Zhao Shi were all incredibly powerful figures. Jingdu District, Handan County. Dichin sighed softly. The joy of subduing Lien disappeared after Ouyang Shua's torment. He couldn't help but mutter to himself, "What a fearsome opponent." However, Di-Chun, will not admit defeat so easily. The best part is yet to come. That's what makes it interesting, isn't it? Besides Handan County's top tactician, Peerless Elegance, was also the leader of Unparalleled Sword of Sword Key, one sword from the west. After a few rounds of discussion, Handan County and Unparalleled Sword of Sword Key finally reached a strategic alliance. Xiangyang District, Danyang District. Lord Chunshin was also in the back garden of the feudal lord's mansion, entertaining a special guest. He was the leader of 18 steeds of Swallow and Cloud, Swallow Li San. Among the top 10 guilds in the China region, 18 steeds of Swallow and Cloud had the most connections with the territory. Their members were all general players. As the adventure-type players leveled up and their equipment was upgraded, They gradually caught up with the equipment of the territory's regular army. Their battle power could not be underestimated. The adventure-type players had already passed their infancy stage and were beginning to step onto the big stage. A new round of shuffling was quietly underway. Just like the cooperation between Mountain Sea City and Snow Rose, guilds and territories naturally complemented each other. Both sides had a strong foundation for cooperation. When the two worked together, they could display the effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2. Feudal lords with good foresight, such as Di Chun and Lord Chunshin, once again took the lead. As for those feudal lords who were slow to react, by the time the adventure-type players truly showed their prowess, the big cake had already been divided up. The strong were always able to advance their influence before the world changed, leading the trend of times. As for the weak, they could only go with the flow and complain about the fickleness of the world. Lord Chunshin's foresight was extremely unique. His family was based on business, and the majority of its members were related to business. In terms of political and military talents, he could not compare to Di Chun and Warwolf. He could not even compare to Xiongba. Thus, in order to make up for this shortcoming, Lord Chunshin chose 18 steeds of Swallow and Cloud from the top 10 guilds. Similarly, 18 steeds of Swallow and Cloud, because of their profession, had a high demand for equipment. They naturally hit it off well with the wealthy Danyang district. When Swallow Lisan heard the system announcement, he said mockingly, "That master is really restless. Who doesn't want this kind of restless life?" Lord Chunshin laughed at himself. In the Battle of Chongping, he had finally subdued Zhao Kuo after many twists and turns. But compared to Di Chen's subdued Lien Pe, he was still a notch below. Now that not wearing had caused such a ruckus, he felt even more bored. Jianyi District, Qishui District. In front of Warwolf sat a middle-aged general, not angry, but imposing. When the middle-aged general heard the system announcement, he said with a smile, "War Saint Sun Wu, I really want to see him. How can an antique from thousands of years ago compare to you, teacher?" Warwolf was full of confidence. In his heart, his teacher's ability to command in battle was comparable to any historical general, perhaps even better. "Hey, you can't say that." The middle-aged general waved his hand and said, "Sun Tzu's art of war is enough to guide modern warfare on a strategic level. How could it be easy? Especially in the game. You can't underestimate these historical generals in this kind of pure cold weapon warfare." Teacher is too modest. 10,000 changes do not deviate from the original. I still feel that an army trained by modern science is stronger than an ancient army. Warwolf persisted in his opinion. The middle-aged general shook his head, declining to comment. To be continued. Chapter 297. Ouyang Shuo, of course, did not know that the outside world was in turmoil. He calmly checked Sun Wu's personal attributes. Name, Sun Wu Saint. Title, War Saint Dynasty. Spring and Autumn, Qi. Identity, Principal of Shanghai City Army Martial Arts Hall. Occupation, Special General Loyalty. 65-point Commander. 100 Martial Power. 75 Intelligence. 95 Politics. 80 Specialty. Classic, Sun Tzu's Art of War Evaluation. Sun Tzu was from Qi, and his name was Wu. He wrote 13 chapters on the art of war for King Wu Helu. He was a woman and became a general. He defeated Chu in the west, entered Ing, and conquered Qi and Jin in the north. The ancient saying of war, no one came from Sun Tzu. The balance of advantages and disadvantages, the coexistence of the strange and the righteous, the battle, the defense, the attack, the encirclement, there are hundreds of them. After checking Sun Wu's attributes, Ouyang Shuo was both happy and worried. As expected of a saint-level historical figure, Sun Wu's attributes were very strong. He had no shortcomings in any of the 4 attributes. The commander attribute was a terrifying 100 points. Unfortunately, Sun Wu only chose to settle in Shanghai City and did not want to become a general. Therefore, he was not subdued. His loyalty was very low, and his specialties could not be displayed. He could not bring any bonus to the territory. After Sun Wu agreed, Ouyang Shua immediately established the Army Martial Arts Hall Preparation Committee to be responsible for the construction of the Army Martial Arts Hall. The entire preparation work was divided into two parts. One was the construction of the hardware facilities, and the other was the construction of the software facilities. Needless to say, the hardware facilities were the construction of the campus. Because of the experience of building the Southwest University China Martial Arts Hall, Ouyang Shua was reassured to hand over this work to the construction department in the School of Architecture. The only difficulty was that the construction of the Army Martial Arts Hall coincided with the construction of the outer city wall. Ouyang Shua could only reluctantly give up and instructed the construction department to make the construction of the Army Martial Arts Hall their first priority. The software facilities were more complicated. The first thing was the construction of a teaching staff. The entire Army Martial Arts Hall could not be supported by Sun Wu alone. They needed a strong team of instructors. The Army Martial Arts Hall had 4 sections: infantry, cavalry, engineers, and logistics. Each section needed a section chief. Topography, city construction, weaponry, military system, hygiene, and other military courses also required corresponding instructors. There were also basic courses such as Chinese, ethics, machinery drawing, arithmetic, history and geography, infantry drill, and service orders that also required instructors. Sun Wu was the principal of the Military Force Lecture Hall. At the same time, he was also the section chief of the infantry division. He was responsible for teaching weaponry and military tactics. The Divine Strategy Battalion's battalion commander, Wang Yuanfeng, was relieved of his post and became the chief of the engineering department, responsible for teaching the basics of tool drawing. After Wang Yuanfeng was transferred out of the Divine Strategy Battalion, Ouyang Shua removed the Divine Strategy Battalion's independent organization and transferred it to the City Guard Division, becoming a direct subordinate force of the City Guard Division. Core member of the Falling Moon Society, cartographer 9-Line, as a topographical instructor, Elder Qian, the deputy director of the Official Medical Bureau, as a hygiene instructor. Instructors for the 4 basic courses of Chinese, ethics, arithmetic, and history and geography were recruited from Southwest University China Hall. The instructors of the 2 basic courses, infantry drill and military service orders, were selected from the Special Forces members who had been eliminated. They had received strict infantry drill and military service training in the recruit camp in the western suburbs. The 2 vacant section chiefs and many instructors could only be recruited from the outside. Ouyang Shua was also reluctant to transfer too many active generals to the Army Martial Arts Hall. Ouyang Shua informed the various royal city offices and ordered them to spread the news that the war sage Sun Wu had established the Army Martial Arts Hall in Shanghai City. This was to attract talents to join the Army Martial Arts Hall. In addition, Sun Wu also used his great influence as a military grandmaster to gather military scholars to work in the Army Martial Arts Hall through special channels. After all, Sun Wu's original intention was not to train generals for Shanghai City, but to study the military theory and carry it forward. Other than the team of instructors, Ouyang Shua gave Sun Wu full authority to design the school system, curriculum, and a series of other tasks. The establishment of the Army Martial Arts Hall tempted Jiang Shang. Using the opportunity of chatting with Sun Wu, he would give some of his opinions and suggestions from time to time. With Jiang Shang and Sun Wu taking the lead, Ouyang Shua naturally wouldn't display his slight skill in front of an expert. On the other hand, Ouyang Shua contacted Black Mamba, the leader of the Rattlesnake mercenary group, and invited him to send some members to work in the Army Martial Arts Hall. After receiving Ouyang Shua's invitation, Black Mamba couldn't help but sigh. As expected of the most troublesome territory in the China region, the Special Forces hadn't even taken shape yet, but he had already established the Army Martial Arts Hall. Although Black Mamba was emotional, he was still very tempted by Ouyang Shua's proposal. Not to mention the generous rewards that Ouyang Shua promised. Many people were willing to work in the Army Martial Arts Hall just for the sake of the war sage Sun Wu. The cooperation between Shanghai City and the Rattlesnake mercenary group began to enter the honeymoon period. With Shanghai City's deep foundation, the framework of the Army Martial Arts Hall was finally set up. Ouyang Shua didn't ask about the rest of the work and left it to the preparatory committee. Ouyang Shua's gaze shifted to the other territory lords in the Lianzhou Basin. With the establishment of the Tianfeng Prefecture, the 20 small territory lords in the west of the Lianzhou Basin were in an awkward situation. The Tianfeng Prefecture's jurisdiction extended to the central wilderness in the north, Guangshui County in the east, the Evernight Forest in the south, and the Sila Lake in the west. In fact, more than half of the territory under the jurisdiction of the Tianfeng Prefecture didn't belong to the Mountain Sea Territory. The territory sandwiched between Tianfeng City, Evernight County, and Guangshui County was occupied by more than 20 territory lords. Therefore, Ouyang Shua's actions were extremely overbearing, like a dove occupying a magpie's nest. Under Ouyang Shua's instructions, the 1st Division, which was stationed in the western barracks of the city, launched a series of operations to suppress bandits in the territory of the Tianfeng Prefecture, announcing that the area was now under the jurisdiction of the Mountain Sea Territory. On the other hand, it was really strange that the 1st Division turned a blind eye to the territory of the players under its jurisdiction. For a moment, the territory lords were in a dilemma. If they fought, they couldn't defeat them. If they fled, they couldn't bear to give up the territory they had painstakingly built up. The strange behavior of the 1st Division gave the territory lords a glimmer of hope. Perhaps the Marquis of Lianzhou was magnanimous and didn't intend to use force against them. Of course, the territory lords knew that this was just the thinking of an ostrich. The 1st Division didn't use force against these territories, but as long as it was a territory bordering the Mountain Sea Territory, they wouldn't be so polite and would annihilate it easily. Therefore, when a Mountain Sea city was promoted again, it would be the time for them to suffer. It wasn't that Ouyang Shua didn't know the dilemma of the territory lords. After the reorganization of the 1st Division was completed, he planned to completely solve the problem of the territory of the players in the West. According to the opinion of the 1st Division's commander, Shi Wansui, they should be completely wiped out to avoid future troubles. As a territory lord, Ouyang Shu couldn't give up the strategy of breeding parasites that he had previously formulated just for a moment of pleasure. After all, the population limit of first-grade county city was 500,000. After it was promoted to a second-grade county city, it was unknown how much the population limit would increase. Relying on the spawning of refugees was really not enough to satisfy Ouyang Shua's appetite. The wool comes from the sheep's back. These players' territories were the best breeding grounds for the population. However, after the establishment of the Tianfeng Prefecture, Ouyang Shua couldn't tolerate these territories having their own army. If he didn't care about anything and let things run their own course, there would be a bunch of ticking time bombs. The previous surprise attack on Evernight Town was a wake-up call for Ouyang Shua. At the end of the day, they were the territory lords. No territory lord was willing to sit still and wait for death. A corner dog would jump over a wall. After weighing the pros and cons, Ouyang Shua thought of a solution. On the 12th of December, 23 territory lords in the western part of the Lianzhou Basin received an invitation from the Marquis of Lianzhou, He Wui. He invited them to Shanghai City on the morning of the 15th to discuss important matters. The invitation also vaguely mentioned that if any territory lord didn't come to Shanghai City on that day, it would mean that they looked down on the Marquis of Lianzhou, and the 1st Division of Shanghai City would personally visit their territory. This strongly worded invitation caused a huge uproar in the western region. The territory lords were in awe and trepidation. They didn't know what the Marquis of Lianzhou was going to do. Could it be that he was going to secretly ambush them and kill them? In their eyes, this was a feast at Hongmen through and through. What made them helpless was that even if they knew it was a feast at Hongmen, they didn't dare to not attend. The threat of the 1st Division was real, and they couldn't ignore it. On the contrary, some of the territory lords felt a lot more at ease. In their opinion, instead of hanging around like this, it was better to make things clear and come up with a plan. Even if they were to die, they should die in peace. That way, they wouldn't have to live in fear and worry all day long. There were also some territory lords who were indignant and exposed the contents of the invitation on the forum, causing another wave of uproar. The players of the China region became excited. A few days ago, Shanghai City had just made a big move, and they didn't expect it to create another big news. The players had different opinions, and there were all kinds of comments. The Marquis of Lianzhou has shown his ambition to dominate Lianzhou. He Wui is a bandit. He doesn't deserve to be the player representative of the China region. The Marquis of Lianzhou has subdued all the territory lords with a single word. The king's domineering aura is beginning to show. China advocates using virtue to subdue people. It's not the behavior of a gentleman to use force to suppress people without clothes. The Marquis of Lianzhou has suddenly shown his sword. A storm is coming in the China region, and a drastic change is coming. Using force to bully the weak, he's a real villain. If he's so capable, go and fight the foreigners. The weak are prey to the strong. It's the law of the jungle. How can he be without clothes? We support you. How can he be without clothes? Everyone has the right to punish him. In addition to making comments, some players also wrote long posts on the forum, analyzing the deeper meaning behind the invitation. Among them, Bai Xiaoxing's post was the most profound and almost hit the nail on the head. Bai Xiaoxing predicted that as the only county-level territory in the world, Hao Wui unexpectedly chose to solve the problem through negotiation when he had the ability to annihilate the surrounding territories. Anyone with a discerning eye could see the problem. He predicted that after the territory was promoted to a county-level city, some new changes must have happened. The most likely change was a sharp increase in the population. Otherwise, Hao Wui wouldn't have gone through so much trouble. Bai Xiaoxing even asserted that after the food crisis, the population would become the next target of contention for the various territory lords. A chaotic period of war was about to begin. Bai Xiaoxing's prediction caused a wave of uproar in the forum. Some adventure-type players even vowed that the spring of adventure-type players was about to arrive. To be continued. Chapter 298. Ouyang Shuo only smiled at the debate on the forum. Ouyang Shuo didn't mind, but that didn't mean the others didn't. Even the members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance were shocked by Xiaoxing's prediction. They hurriedly sought confirmation from Ouyang Shuo. Among the members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance, Baiwa and Feng Xiuhuang were the most anxious. Their territory had long been promoted to a third-grade county city and was steadily advancing to a first-grade county city. Ouyang Shuo naturally wouldn't hide anything. He explained the changes to the county city in detail from the start of the promotion mission so that everyone could prepare in advance. After Ouyang Shuo finished speaking, the Alliance channel fell silent. They didn't expect the promotion mission to be so abnormal. After the promotion, the county city had changed so much that they were caught unprepared. Ouyang Shuo might have easily completed the 4 promotion missions, but he wouldn't have been able to complete any of them in other territories. Needless to say, it was an almost impossible task. For the Chamber of Commerce to settle in, Shanghai County was only able to establish a relationship with the Chui Family Chamber of Commerce because of Ingyu. It was pure luck. For the cultural festival, it was even more exaggerated. There were no hidden buildings like the Mazu Temple in other territories. The last one, the core trial, looked the simplest, but it wasn't simple at all. The second division was the most elite division in Shanghai County. If they could barely complete it, there was no need to mention the other territories. To put it bluntly, the other territories didn't have a foundation like Shanghai County. Fortunately, other than Baiwa and Feng Xiuhuang, the other territories still had a long way to go. They had a long time to prepare. Taking 10,000 steps back, they would be promoted as long as they completed 2 missions. There was no need to be too demanding. Supreme Court District, Lingxi County. The 4 beauties gathered in the backyard and digested the information they had just received. Baiwa sighed and said, "The promotion mission of the county city is really despairing. What's there to be afraid of? We'll cross the bridge when we get there," Hong Ying said casually. Although the territory advancement quests are random, it's still the same. Shanghai City's 4 quests are of great reference value. We can start preparing for them now, Qingyi said. That's right. The Breeze Pavilion and Dali can be in charge of the recruitment of virtuous persons and the entry of chambers of commerce. They're very famous in Dali. Even if they don't look for historical figures, it shouldn't be difficult for them to establish a connection with a chamber of commerce. Okay, I'll write a letter to Big Brother later. Qingyi's analysis gave Bai Hua some confidence. It shouldn't be a problem to leave the Legion trial to General Zhang Liao. The last cultural festival will require us sisters to plan. Based on Qingyi's analysis, it wouldn't be too difficult for Lingxi County to complete at least 2 missions. All right, Violet giggled and walked over. She stroked Cyan Yi's head and said curiously, "Tell me, what is little Yao's brain made of? How can it be so smart?" An unsolvable problem, in her words, instantly became simple. "Sister," Qingyi pouted and acted like a spoiled child. Her style suddenly changed. In an instant, she changed from a calm and intelligent female Zhuge to a next-door little sister. Luoyang District, Luofeng County. Compared to Qing, Hong, purplish and white, Feng Xiaohuang had a much more difficult time. Only after leaving her clan did she truly understand how heavy the burden on her shoulders was. It was so heavy that she almost couldn't breathe. If it wasn't for her strong character and unyielding stubbornness, she might not have been able to hold on. In the blink of an eye, for months had passed since that cruel show of forcing her to abdicate the throne. Under her leadership, Luofeng County regained its vitality. The only flaw was that Lingxi County caught up and replaced Luofeng County's position in the Mountain and Sea Alliance. In the Battle of Chongping, she had used the information she had received to successfully subdue the valiant General Wang Bei. Subduing Wang Bei meant that the army was no longer Luofeng County's weakness. She could now devote herself to the internal affairs of her territory. Apart from that, with Wang Bei, Luofeng County would be able to play a greater role in the next battle. Although she didn't know much about military affairs, she was still very confident in internal affairs. After years of being influenced by what she saw and heard, coupled with her years of experience in the real world, she wasn't someone to be trifled with. Even so, Feng Xiaohuang didn't have much confidence in the promotion mission. She really wanted to compete with Bai Hua for the promotion to a rank 1 county city. It wasn't that she had any opinions about Bai Hua, but as an outstanding female player, she couldn't accept it. I might have to use that hidden chess piece, Feng Xiaohuang muttered to herself. The next day, Ouyang Shuo was listening to the report on the city wall design from the School of Architecture in his study. Old Li's design overthrew the outer city wall that Ouyang Shuo had previously planned for Shanghai City. Instead, he used an entire outer city wall that encompassed the Shanghai District, Pool District, and Friendship District, forming a huge city. There is a certain distance between the 3 cities, ranging from 10 to 15 kilometers. Ouyang Shuo had purposely left it as a strategic buffer zone. Now, all of them were surrounded by the city wall. The west side of the outer city wall was the same as the west side of the second city wall in the Shanghai District. The north side of the outer city wall was the same as the north side of the Friendship District. The east side of the outer city wall was the same as the east side of the Pool District. As a result, the entire city wall was 25 kilometers from east to west and 30 kilometers from north to south. It covered an area of 750 square kilometers, which was the size of 9 Tangchong and cities. Compared to Ouyang Shuo's initial plan of 100 square kilometers of Shanghai City, it was 75 times bigger. Because it had to be connected to the existing city wall, the outer city wall was designed to be 12 meters tall and 6 meters wide. It was very different from Tianfeng City's city wall design. This is crazy. If we don't design it this way, the integration of the 3 cities would just be empty talk. In the hearts of the commoners, how can we be considered as citizens of the same city if we are not under the same city wall? Old Li's attitude was firm. But Old Li, have you ever thought about it? According to your design, the city will be integrated into one and the area will be large enough, but the city's defense will be weakened? How can such a narrow city wall match the status of the future capital city? Not only that, according to this design, the core area will be at the corner of the city. Once the enemy invades, they can easily attack the Marquis mansion. Ouyang Shuo was a little emotional. Ouyang, don't be too emotional. Sun Xiaoya came out to smooth things over and explained, actually, we've already considered your concerns when we were designing. What do you mean? Ouyang Shuo tried his best to calm himself down. If we're talking about the city's defense, the future Shanghai city is indeed not strong. It barely passes. However, a city's defense needs to be evaluated in a larger context. Think about it. The Lianzhou Basin has long been regarded as your exclusive property. It will be yours sooner or later. With the characteristics of the Lianzhou Basin's terrain, everything will be fine as long as you can see the Southern Guard pass. No one will be able to attack. If that's the case, is Shanghai City's defense really that important? If the enemy really breaks through the Southern Guard pass, no matter how thick the city wall is, it will be of no use. But also, Sun Xia did not give Ouyang Shuo a chance to refute and continued. As for the problem of the core area being shifted to the corner of the city, it is just your idea of being the ruler of the city. Think about it. In a modern city, it is very normal for the political center to not be at the center of the city. Ouyang Shuo did not know whether to laugh or cry. Why did the idea of being one with heaven and man, the phenomenon of heaven and earth, the emperor as the ruler, and 100 ministers to serve him become the dregs of feudalism in Sun Xiaoya's eyes? Thinking about it carefully, Sun Xiaoya's words did make sense. With the characteristics of the Lianzhou Basin, Ouyang Shuo did not believe that anyone could attack the foot of Shanghai City. If that really happened, it would really be the end of the road for him. Ouyang Shuo did not expect Sun Xiaoya's strategic vision to be so good. As for himself, he really did live up to the saying, "You don't know the true face of Mount Lu, only because you are in the mountain." Xiaoya, what you said does make sense. Ouyang Shuo did not want to lose face. That's for sure. All right, we will build according to this design. How much work will it take? The amount of work is not as exaggerated as you think. Sun Xiaoya reassured Ouyang Shuo and said, the outer city wall only needs to be built on 3 sides, with a circumference of 85 kilometers. Excluding the 3 sections of the city wall, the actual length of the construction is only 69 kilometers. The amount of work will be about 4 times that of the second city wall in the Shanghai district. Ouyang Shuo nodded and asked, what about the Barbican? Did you take it into consideration? Of course. According to the design, the outer city wall needs at least 20 gates, and the main city gates also need 11 or 12. Every main city gate must be built with a Barbican. Apart from that, we will build a water gate at the junction of the Friendship River, Qiushui River, and Canyon River to ensure the safety of the city. Also, in order to facilitate the communication between the 3 districts, we will add at least 7 to 8 bridges across the river. Ouyang Shuo's scalp went numb. He waved his hand and said, all right. Xiaoya, you can directly contact the construction department and prepare the detailed project budget and progress plan. Then, coordinate with the finance department to allocate the project funds. At the same time, contact the civil affairs department to conscript the corvée. We must finish building the city wall before the spring sowing next year. Such a huge project would cost a lot of money. Ouyang Shuo was thinking of withholding a part of the December revenue for the auction, but now it seemed that it would not be possible. Don't forget, other than the city wall project, there was also the military lecture hall waiting to be built. Me? Sun Xiaoya said with some uncertainty. She was still a little nervous in her heart. Such a huge project would not be easy to coordinate. She was a little unconfident. Yes, it's you, the chief commander of the city wall project. Ouyang Shuo naturally had a hand over this important project to someone he could trust. Moreover, Xiaoya was usually a little too lazy, so he had to give her more responsibilities. What? You didn't even ask for my opinion and just casually told me about the task. Son, Xiaoya muttered. What? You don't want to help me? I'll help you. Who's afraid of who? Sun Xiaoya could not be provoked. All right, then it's settled. Ouyang Shuo made the decision. After discussing the city wall, Ouyang Shua, an elderly, talked about the overall design of Shanghai City. This was several times bigger than the city wall project. Just the design alone would involve many professions such as architecture, planning, municipal administration, and water conservancy. It would not be completed in a short time. To be continued. Chapter 299. Gaia's First Year, December 15th, Shanghai City. 23 player-level lords of the western region of the Lianzhou Basin gathered in Shanghai City to discuss important matters. No one was absent. Ouyang Shua personally welcomed the lords at the teleportation array. The meeting place was arranged at the main hall. Because it was a meeting between lords, Ouyang Shua did not arrange for Fan Zhongyin and the others to accompany them. The lords were basically still wandering around in the third-class towns, and only a few had been promoted to the first-class county. After seeing the bustling scene of Shanghai City, they could not help but feel a little less imposing. When they entered the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion and saw the dignified and imposing mansion, their imposing manner weakened again. Compared to the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion, their lord's mansion was simply a shabby, thatched hut. Only then did they realize how big the gap between their territory and the Mountain Sea territory was. It was the first time for some of the lords to step out of their territory. Previously, they had stayed in their territory and lived a carefree life, so they did not feel proud and arrogant. They thought, so what if Shanghai City was promoted to a county city? They were still lords, so how could the difference be so great? When they saw the prosperity of Shanghai City, they finally understood what it meant to be a frog in a well. The main hall had already been decorated, and maids were shuttling back and forth in the hall, serving wine and fruit platters. After the expansion of the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion, the head of the Internal Affairs Division, Zi Su, was instructed by Ouyang Shua to recruit a group of maids and servants to maintain the normal operation of the Marquis Mansion. In such a large Marquis manor, just sweeping the courtyard required more than 10 people to be responsible. Because he did not want the atmosphere of the meeting to be too formal, Ouyang Shua specially invited a theatrical troupe to liven things up. To be honest, it was Ouyang Shua's first time seeing a theatrical troupe in his territory, and it was indeed magnificent. Such a scene had already caused the feudal lords to feel dizzy, and they sighed in their hearts. This is the real life of a feudal lord. Their own land is really unsophisticated. Ouyang Shua sat at the head of the table, raised his wine cup, looked around, and said with a smile, "Everyone is a guest from afar, and I have prepared some meager wine. Please forgive me for not being a good host. Let me propose a toast to everyone. Cheers." Cheers! Everyone raised their cups. Regardless of what they were thinking, at least the scene was peaceful and lively. Accompanied by singing and dancing, the lords chatted with each other and drank happily. It was as if they had forgotten the original purpose of this trip and were really just here to attend a banquet. Ouyang Shua shuttled through the hall, getting to know the lords one by one. In response to Ouyang Shua's goodwill, there were some who responded enthusiastically, while others were indifferent. Intoxicated by the wine, an hour had passed unknowingly. When Ouyang Shua saw that the situation was more or less settled, he waved his hand to signal the troop to withdraw, and the hall fell silent. Fortunately, there was no such thing as getting drunk in the game. The lords' hearts trembled. They knew that the real show had just begun. "Marquis," the lords said. "Marquis in a county and Zhou County, Yin City and County, and said, "S." One of the impatient lords said, "Marquis Lian Zhou invited us here. Why don't you just say it? Why don't you beat around the bush?" His tone was less courteous. "All right, brother, you're a straightforward person, so I'll be straightforward. Since the Mountain Sea territory had established the Skywind Prefecture, it could not be removed. The conflict between the Heavenly Wind Mansion and the other territories could be resolved. As long as you agree to a few of my conditions, I can guarantee that your territories will be safe until the Mountain Sea territory's border." The hearts of all the lords trembled. The bottom line that Ouyang Shua had drawn had already made them feel extremely uncomfortable. Marquis Lianzhou really knows how to joke. With the speed at which the Mountain Sea territory is developing, It's only a matter of time before it's connected to our territory. No matter what condition you propose, it won't solve the root of the problem. Yeah, someone followed suit and said, "What's the use of a moment of comfort? We aren't ostriches that can pretend that nothing has happened." Brother, you're straightforward. What if I can guarantee your interests after your territories are occupied? The territory has already been occupied by you. What kind of benefits are there? How can you guarantee our interests? For a time, the hall started to clamor again. Everyone spoke one after another, venting their dissatisfaction. They were all rather agitated. "Everyone, quiet down and listen to me." Ouyang Shaw pressed his hand down and waited for the hall to quiet down again before he continued. "Everyone, listen to my suggestion first before making a decision, right? All right, then tell me, how can you guarantee our interests?" Seeing that the fate of their territories being occupied was irreversible, some of the rational lords began to seek for benefits that were one level lower. They no longer blindly jeered. Ouyang Shaw nodded and said, "There are only two reasons for everyone to play Earth on Le. First, it's to like the game and enjoy the game. Second, it's to achieve some results in the game, so as to raise your authority level in Gaia's second achievement point evaluation. No one objects to my suggestion, right?" "That's right." "If the territory is occupied, wouldn't everything be in vain? What kind of achievement points are there to speak of?" "That's right." "Wrong." Ouyang Shua shook his head firmly. "Wrong?" "Yes, wrong." Ouyang Shua said slowly. "The evaluation of achievement points is not limited to the existence of the territory. If that's the case, how many of the 10,000 lords in the China region will survive in the end? Don't tell me those whose territories are occupied or destroyed don't receive any achievement points. Definitely not. The evaluation of achievement points includes not only territory, but also personal wealth, job level, etc. All of them are within the scope of evaluation. Therefore, the occupation of a territory does not mean the end of achievement points." The lords fell into deep thought and basically agreed with Ouyang Shua's words. "Marquis Lianzhou, state your guarantee," said one of the lords named Little Amy. She was also one of the few female lords among the lords. "All right." Ouyang Shua nodded and said, "As long as everyone agrees to my conditions, I promise that after occupying your territory, you will be allowed to continue living in the Mountain Sea territory. In addition, all the wealth you have previously obtained will be turned into your personal property. I will not take a single cent. This way, you can use this rich wealth to develop in the Imperial City or do business in the Mountain Sea territory. It's all up to your personal freedom." To be honest, I believe everyone knows that managing a territory is extremely risky. The competition between the lords is extremely cruel. Among 100 lords, there might not even be one that survives. Since that's the case, why don't you change to doing business? Not only will you have a stable income, you might even be able to open up a new world. After Ouyang Shua finished speaking, the hall fell into silence. It should be said that Ouyang Shua had shown enough sincerity to move them with emotion and reason. Now it was up to them to decide. "Can you tell us your conditions?" asked Little Amy again. Ouyang Shua nodded and said with a smile, "Of course. Actually, my conditions are very simple. There are only two in total. First, the armies of your territories must be reorganized by Shanghai City, and you're not allowed to recruit new troops. The security of Tianfeng City's territory will be taken over by the 1st Division. Second, the structure of your territories must be adjusted according to the unified structure of the Mountain Sea territory. Of course, Shanghai City will not interfere with the appointment and dismissal of personnel. It's all up to you. The above two conditions are limited to before your territories are occupied. After that, I will have to trouble you to leave your territories and settle down in Shanghai City or other places." "Marquis Lianzhou, don't you think you're going too far?" Someone was indignant after hearing Ouyang Shua's conditions. "That's right. We're not pushovers. You can bully us however you want. Also, how can we guarantee that you'll fulfill your promise? What if you don't acknowledge it when the time comes?" "If you don't believe me, you can sign a contract," Ouyang Shua replied. "That's for the best. What's so good about it? You're just a bunch of spineless cowards." Someone deliberately made a fuss. "You, That lord's face immediately turned red after being scolded. Ouyang Shua's eyes narrowed. He had long noticed that the lord who had scolded him had already taken the lead to make a fuss several times. His behavior was very strange, and he seemed to be deliberately causing trouble. His expression instantly turned cold. He looked at the lord and said in a cold voice, "I don't care if you're doing this out of your own will or if there's someone behind you. I'm officially informing you that your territory is no longer under the protection of the Mountain Sea Territory. Prepare to pack up and leave." "You." That lord's face turned red, as if he had been stabbed in his sore spot. "Guards." "Yes." 2 guards walked in. Ouyang Shua pointed at the lord and said, "Lord, please leave Shanghai City." "Yes, sir." The guards dragged the pale lord out. He clearly didn't expect that Ouyang Shua would turn hostile faster than flipping a book. He didn't even have the slightest chance to defend himself. Ouyang Shua was quite magnanimous and allowed him to leave through the teleportation formation. Otherwise, he would just be waiting to wander in the wilderness. "Don't be so arrogant. Someone will take care of you." Before the lord left, he left behind some ruthless words to vent the hatred in his heart. Ouyang Shua didn't even look at him. He said to the other lords, "How about it? Have you all made up your mind?" Killing the chicken to warn the monkey just now had an immediate effect. The lords accepted their fate and agreed to sign a contract with Ouyang Shua. After signing the contract, the lords bid farewell and left. Ouyang Shua immediately issued a military order to Shi Wansui through the Hummingbird. He ordered him to lead the 1st Division and be responsible for escorting the soldiers of the various territories back to Shanghai City. As for the troublemakers' territory, they would naturally occupy it and send the captives back to Shanghai City. In the end, there were a total of 12,500 soldiers in the 23 territories. Of course, the combat strength of these soldiers was a bit too horrible to look at. They were all using the equipment that the system had given them when they went through the class advancement. The reorganized army made up for the 3 great divisions, and the remaining soldiers were all assigned to the newly formed City Guard Division. This greatly sped up the formation of the City Guard Division. To be continued. Chapter 300. The contracts that Ouyang Shua signed with the various lords were quickly exposed on the forums. Naturally, there was a bloodbath on the forums. The adventurers watched the show while the lords watched the process. After looking through the contents of the contracts, the lords came to a sudden realization. They understood the essence of the contracts and rushed to follow suit. The series of measures that Ouyang Shua came up with using peace contracts as the core was called the Lian Province Model by the lords, and it instantly became popular in the China region. The significance of the Lian Province Model was to completely break the previous step-by-step annexation model. It changed from a purely military approach to one that used military means as the core, supplemented by diplomatic and administrative means. The 3-pronged approach pushed the territorial wars to a higher level. If one had to describe it, it was similar to colonization. To implement the Lian Province Model, at least 2 conditions had to be met. First, the territory had to have the military power to crush everything else. Otherwise, everything would be in vain. Second, the signed territories had to be occupied in order to curb their development. Otherwise, it would be extremely easy to cause a backlash. Even so, there were still many territories that met these conditions. It wasn't limited to the members of the Yanhuang Alliance and the Shanghai Alliance. None of the top 100 territories on the leaderboards were willing to be left out. For a moment, the great lords were sharpening their swords, while the lesser lords were trembling with fear. In a noisy wilderness, the wind was howling. The prevalence of the Lian Province Model signaled the beginning of the second phase of the territorial wars, the big fish devouring the small fish. The small shrimps from before had already been cruelly eliminated by the wilderness. Ouyang Shua, the butterfly that had traveled through time and space, once again set off a storm. The territorial wars broke out in advance, pushing the game to another unpredictable future. After the successful implementation of the Western region strategy, Ouyang Shua began to turn his attention to the Eastern region. The situation in the eastern region was more complicated. Because of the existence of Duanren County, Shanghai City's control over the eastern region was far less than that of the western region. Even so, Ouyang Shua didn't give up. As usual, he sent the same invitation to the 25 territories in the eastern region. Even Ba Dao of Duanren County received an invitation from Ouyang Shua. Ba Dao took the invitation from the messenger. He was flustered and exasperated. He tore the invitation into pieces on the spot and said fiercely, "I'm not done with you." Of course, Ouyang Shua didn't expect Ba Dao to come. It was just a prank. When he thought of Ba Dao's expression when he received the invitation, Ouyang Shua was secretly delighted. Although Ouyang Shua didn't want to touch the chess piece that was Duanren County, he wouldn't allow it to grow. In order to contain Duanren County, the first step was to clip its wings and destroy its outer barrier. Due to Duanren County's absence, the effect of the second banquet was not as good as the first. Of the 25 feudal lords, only 19 were present. The remaining 6 had formed a small group with Ba Dao as the core. They were prepared to fight Shanghai City to the end. Ouyang Shua's expression didn't change as he signed a contract with the 19 lords. At the same time, he arranged for the 3rd Division to be responsible for the reorganization of the eastern region's garrison troops. When the lords bid their farewells and left, Ouyang Shua laughed coldly. Useless! On the same day, the 2nd Division stationed at the northern barracks received Ouyang Shua's military order, requesting them to uproot the 5 territories that were absent from the conference in the shortest time possible, excluding Duanren County. Those who obey me shall prosper. Those who oppose me shall perish. Luo Shixin mobilized his troops immediately upon receiving the order. Since it was a long-range assault, Luo Shixin left the 1st and 2nd Brigades in charge of guarding the barracks, while he personally led the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Brigades along the Qiushui River, heading east of Lianzhou Basin. Before leaving, Lin Yi and Sun Tengjiao came to Luo Shixin's tent. Division Commander, please don't do that. We finally have a battle to fight. We can't just leave the 2nd Brigade behind. That's right, the 1st Brigade wants to join the battle as well. Nonsense. Luo Shixin had already established his authority in the 2nd Division and decided to explain after some thought. The Marquis wants you to be fast, ruthless, and accurate for this mission. You guys are heavy cavalry, not suitable for this mission. We may be heavy cavalry, but we're not slower than light cavalry at all. That's right, this bit of weight is nothing for the Siam Beetle horse. No, Luo Shixin refused again. If we all leave, who's going to stay and guard the barracks? The nomadic tribes in the north are eyeing us hungrily. We can't let our guard down. All right, Lin Yi knew the gravity of the situation and said unwillingly, "All right, stop being so wishy-washy. We'll fight if we follow the Marquis." Luo Shixin said as he walked out of the tent, gathered the troops, and prepared to leave. The 2nd Division marched quickly and arrived at their destination in the afternoon. Seeing that it was still early, Luo Shixin made a prompt decision, giving the order not to wait until the next day. The 8,000 cavalrymen were like a whirlwind, sweeping through everything in their path with an unstoppable momentum. Before the enemy could react, they had already broken into the Lord's manor and completed their mission. In less than 2 hours, they had taken down 3 territories. The last 2 territories were connected to Duanren County, and they had already received the news and sent a request for help to Blade. At this moment, the 2 feudal lords were filled with regret. They should not have been possessed and listened to Overlord Saber's bewitchment. Now, they didn't get anything, and instead, they were going to lose their lives. Blade received the request for help, and he felt conflicted. If he saved them, Duanren County didn't have the confidence to fight against the 8,000 elites of Shanghai City. If he didn't save them, he would break his promise. More importantly, once the 2 territories fell, Duanren County's outer barrier would be swept away. It would become a completely isolated city. Because he was confident that Shanghai City wouldn't do anything to him, Blade wasn't prepared to fight them at all, and he didn't contact the Yanhuang Alliance in advance. It was too late to ask for help now, and war wasn't child's play. In the end, Blade Ba made up his mind and said, "You two brothers, good luck." At this time, Luo Shirshin had already surrounded the two territories with his troops. He purposely surrounded them, but didn't attack. He wanted to lure Blade Ba to save them, and then attack the reinforcements. Although the Marquis had ordered that they couldn't cross Duanren County's territory, if Blade Ba came to help, he could destroy them, and it wouldn't be going against the Marquis' order. Unfortunately, he overestimated Blade. Half an hour passed, and there was no movement in the city. Luo Shirshin sat on his warhorse and smiled disdainfully and shook his head in disappointment. What a coward. He waved his hands, signaling the army to attack. The two territories vanished into thin air amidst the Lord's curses. Duanren County was the only territory left in the entire Lianzhou Basin. Ouyang Shua had taken a big step in unifying the Lianzhou Basin. With their hatred for Blade Ba, the two feudal lords reincarnated in the Supreme Court's Reincarnation Hall. They walked out of the Reincarnation Hall, cursing, "Blade Ba is too much. He didn't even help us, and we trusted him so much. We've lost big this time." That's right, in the Yin-Huang Alliance. Bullsh *T, a bunch of cowards scared out of their wits by Nio Wui. I'm going to the forum to expose them. If I don't ruin Blade Ba's reputation, I'm not a human. I don't think we need to do anything. Blade Ba won't live for long, and will be killed by Nio Wui sooner or later. Whatever, we have to do something, or else it'll be too frustrating. You're right. Let's go to a forum and vent our anger. Just like that, a farce unfolded. Other than being mocked on the forum, their posts didn't cause any waves. Hitting a rock with an egg serves you right. Which bird is Blade Ba? I don't know him. Blade Ba? Mighty tyrant? Can't you tell? Two idiots. They were fooled, yet they still came to the forum to embarrass themselves. I'm really worried about their intelligence. Those who go against Brother Wui are all bad people. It's important to know one's own limits. How can they be feudal lords with such intelligence? Go home and take care of your children. Looking at the comments on the forum, the two feudal lords vomited blood. They were too ashamed to stay in Dali and didn't show their faces until the end of the game. After the war, Luo Shirshin began to gather the captives and prepared to escort them back to Shanghai City. Seeing that it was getting late, they could only return the next day. On the other side, the 19 feudal lords were still reorganizing the army, with Shanghai City's 3rd Division when they received the news that 5 territories had been eradicated. They couldn't help but feel lucky that they didn't agree to Blade Ba's invitation. Ouyang Shua's ruthless methods left a deep impression on these feudal lords, and they didn't dare to have any other thoughts. The next day, under Bai Chi's instructions, the 3rd Division moved the eastern barracks to the edge of Duanren County. Using the 5 occupied territories as a base, they formed a line of defense and closely monitored every movement in Duanren County. Blade Ba's face darkened when he saw the enemy setting up camp right under his nose. In the eastern region, including the soldiers captured by the 2nd Division, there were a total of 13,200 soldiers. The Western and Western Divisions, in addition to the 3 Great Divisions and the City Guard Division, had an additional 10,000 soldiers. Under Bai Chi's suggestion, Ouyang Shua issued a decree to regulate the organization of the city defense forces. The prefectural government was equipped with a garrison division. The prefectural government was equipped with a brigade of city guards. And finally, the county government was equipped with a city defense battalion. The city guard division would be controlled by the military department, but the local finance department would be responsible for their provisions and salaries. The newly formed City Guard Division would be assigned to Shanghai City's City Guard Division, and Shanghai City would be responsible for their provisions and salaries. According to the organization, Tianfeng City and Beihai City would each be assigned a City Guard Brigade, and Yishui, Gushan, Yongye, and Guanshui counties would each be assigned a County Guard Division. After the City Guard Division was completed, the remaining 3,000 soldiers would be transferred to temporary reserve duty, waiting for the follow-up reorganization. The originally recruited reserve duty will be transferred to the Real Reserve Duty. They only needed to participate in the military training organized by the City Guard Division on time, and they didn't need to stay in the barracks. To be continued. Chapter 301. After the Battle of Chongping, Ouyang Shuo was constantly at the forefront of the storm. As the news of Sun Wu establishing the Land Army Marshal Lecture Hall in Shanghai City spread, there were already military disciples who came to Shanghai City through the Shanghai City offices in the various royal cities. The disciples who came were basically nameless figures. They formed the cornerstone of the military school and filled the ranks of the instructors of the Land Army Marshal Lecture Hall. The other representatives of the military school had yet to appear. On the forum, there was a lord who claimed that Wei Liao, one of the representatives of the military school, had come to his territory before. Unfortunately, he did not make him stay, and it was unknown whether it was true or not. As the news spread, Dali and Quanzhou, the two royal cities that had a close relationship with Shanghai City, especially Quanzhou, once again experienced a small influx of talents. A large number of unsuccessful generals chose to leave the royal city and come to Shanghai City to seek a way out. Although this batch of generals were all junior generals, they were still trained in the military and had rich experience in the military. They were truly a rare treasure. They were the true cornerstone of the military. Bai Qi placed them in the three major divisions and the City Guard Division to further increase the military's combat strength. The sequelae caused by the expansion of the military had basically been eliminated. Shanghai City's military's foundation and the depth of its talent pool was unrivaled except for Red Blood County. Because of the reorganization of the Eastern and Western divisions, the City Guard Division was completed half a year in advance. Although the City Guard Legions were part of the City Defense Forces, they shouldered the task of surrounding and protecting the main camp. Therefore, in reality, they were executed according to the standards of a field army in all aspects of allocation and requirements. The only thing that Ouyang Shuo felt regretful about was that the City Guard Division lacked a division commander who could shoulder the burden. As a last resort, Ouyang Shuo could only let Bai Qi be the division commander of the City Guard Division. Zhao Su, whom Ouyang Shuo valued, was appointed as the deputy division commander and was responsible for the daily work of the City Guard Division. According to the latest plan of Shanghai City, the waterways in the city were intertwined. In addition to the normal deployment of the City Guard Division, an independent Navy battalion was also set up to patrol the waterways. As the pace of the Army reorganization quickened, the three-tier military system of the territory's Field Army, City Defense Force, and Reserve Force was basically completed. In the future, in addition to selecting from the captives, another important channel was to convert the city defense troops to the Field Army, and then from reserve troops to city defense troops, and so on and so forth. The construction of a perfect three-tier army system could effectively prevent the rapid decline of the Army's combat power due to the influx of a large number of new soldiers after the expansion of the territory. As for the Navy, after occupying Moon Island, Ouyang Shuo had instructed Pei Donglai to strengthen the recruitment of sailors and Navy reserves in preparation for the expansion of the Navy next year. This was especially true for sailors. The barracks did not have the option of changing professions for sailors, so they could only be nurtured step by step. With the assistance of North Sea City, the Moon Island Navy base was also successfully constructed. Apart from a naval barracks stationed at the base, 5,000 commoners from North Sea City were also moved in. These commoners were basically the families of the Navy soldiers and were extremely reliable. The most important task of the Navy camp station on the Moonchild Island was to draw up a nautical chart of the surrounding seas. This was to prepare for the future Navy camp to advance into the deep sea. Apart from that, investigating the surrounding pirates was also one of the most important tasks of the Navy. The Black Shark pirates of Moon Island were just child's play in the North Bay. The bigger pirate organizations had yet to appear. From a description of the North Bay treasure map, seized from Moon Island, it could be inferred that when the North Bay pirate organizations were at their peak, they numbered in the hundreds of thousands. They were not to be underestimated. To Bai Qi, the Navy was an unfamiliar territory. For the time being, he could only rely on Pei Donglai. In short, the Shanghai City Army was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. During the reorganization of the Army, the territory's administrative system was not idle either. It was also fruitful. The sweeping operation on both the east and west sides had brought Shanghai City more than 30,000 people. However, compared to the huge population of Shanghai City, it was not even one-tenth of the city's population. With the appointment of the two prefects, Wei Ran and Shui Shaoxi, the structure of the two prefectures was basically completed and officially put into operation. This marked the arrival of the era of the Lianzhou County. The separation of the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion and the Shanghai Prefecture was also completed. Hundreds of low-level officials were transferred from the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion to the Shanghai Prefecture, enriching the structure of the Shanghai Prefecture. At the same time, the 200 or so graduates of the Southwest University China Hall were assigned to various prefectures and counties after passing the Administrative Office's assessment to accumulate government experience. Some of the more outstanding ones were selected by the departments of the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion and directly entered the central administration. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Secretary Lang Bai's non-pu leaders' secretariat welcomed an expansion. In addition to assisting the Marquis, Ouyang Shaw, the clerk of the secretariat, was also assigned a full-time clerk to each of the three directors. After half a year of rotational training, the territory's basic government personnel had basically received training at the Southwest University China Hall. The training period ranged from 1 to 3 months. Starting from next year, the Southwest University China Hall's enrollment target would be the outstanding students recommended by the prefectures, counties, private schools, or academies, as well as recruiting from the general public. Officials in the government system would no longer be included in the enrollment scope of the Southwest University China Hall. The academic system of the Southwest University China Hall would also be officially divided into 1 year and 6 months. The 1-year system was aimed at students recommended by private schools or academies, while the 6-month system was aimed at recruiting from the general public. Regardless of the academic system, only after completing their studies and passing the academy's strict assessment could they smoothly graduate from the Southwest University China Hall. At this point, the operation of the Southwest University China Hall was completely on the right track. Because the territory's structure was undergoing a major restructuring, the officials were frequently transferred. The annual government system assessment was handled coldly by the Administrative Office Chief Fan Zhongyan. Apart from some officials with bad behavior who were dismissed, the rest were handed over to the various prefectural offices. Near the end of the month, the Sky Sea Road was completed ahead of schedule. The completion of the Sky Sea Road completely opened up the communication channel between Tianfeng City and Shanghai City, signifying that the western region was truly integrated into the Shanghai territory. Under the repeated encirclement and suppression of the western camp, the roving bandits in the west had basically been eliminated, providing a safe and reliable guarantee for the development of the region. Taking this opportunity, Ouyang Shaw officially launched the Western Development Strategy. The Lianzhou Marquis Mansion was responsible for the overall planning, while the Shanghai Prefecture and Tianfeng Prefecture were responsible for the specific implementation. The plan was to build hundreds of agricultural settlements along the Sky Sea Road. Most of the newly added refugees were settled in these settlements. The mission of the settlements was also very clear, which was to open up farmland and plant mulberry and flax. The vast land in the western region could not be abandoned. Apart from the hills, forests, and other special areas, the rest had to be opened up for cultivation. According to the conditions of the land, crops such as rice, potatoes, and corn could be planted. Orchards, tea plantations, mulberry trees, and cotton could also be planted. In short, the goal was to vigorously develop agriculture. Since the establishment of the territory, Ouyang Shaw had always emphasized on stimulating the development of handicrafts and industry in order to stimulate the territory's economy. However, Ouyang Shaw was not impulsive. He had always been aware that in ancient society, agriculture was the foundation of a country and always ranked first in all industries. Lianzhou County's unique geographical location and natural environment determined that it was the perfect rear. According to Ouyang Shaw's plan, in the future, Lianzhou County would not only be the territory's headquarters, but also the territory's agricultural base. It would provide the territory with an endless supply of food and other agricultural products, support the territory's military expansion, and provide the most powerful logistical guarantee. With a wave of Ouyang Shua's hand, the Finance Department, the Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Household Registration were all busy. Fortunately, with the assistance of the agricultural experts, everything was still busy but not chaotic. It would not be easy to implement the Great Western Development Strategy. The first requirement was a huge amount of financial allocation. Whether it was the purchase of farming tools, seeds, cattle, and other materials, or the construction of water conservancy facilities, each of them required a large investment. In addition to financial support, there was also the innovation of agricultural technology, including a series of measures such as plows, water wheels, seedlings, and so on, to ensure the increase of agricultural output. Of course, the most important thing was the agricultural planning. There was a need to pay attention to which areas were suitable for planting rice, which areas were suitable for planting cotton, and which areas were suitable for planting mulberry trees. The current affairs of the territory could no longer be handled by Ouyang Shua alone. No matter how capable he was, he could not complete the above tasks. He could only rely on the strength of the officials, experts, and scholars. At most, he could only play a coordinating role. The era of Ouyang Shua personally arranging the territory's planning was long gone. The implementation of the Great Western Development Strategy would lead to the upgrading of some industries. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the planting area of mulberry gardens in the territory would show explosive growth. Ouyang Shua took advantage of the situation and delegated the management of colorful silkworm breeding from the Department of Industry of the Finance Department to the local prefectures and counties. The specific coordination work was handed over to the Textile Association. Not only that, whether it was the Chamber of Commerce or individual businesses, they could all carry out colorful silkworm breeding. Hearing that the Marquis's mansion was going to open the door to colorful silkworm breeding, the people in charge of the large Chamber of Commerce were wild with joy. They immediately expressed that they would invest a huge amount of money to rent land in the western region to plant mulberry trees and raise silkworms. As successful businessmen, they knew the profits of colorful silk very well. There was no free lunch in the world. If the Chamber of Commerce wanted to obtain the colorful silkworm breeding technology, they had to pay a large amount of technology transfer fees to the Finance Department. At the same time, they had to promise not to leak the technology to a third party. After several rounds of negotiation, the technology transfer fee was finally set at 5,000 gold coins. In this way, the technology transfer fees paid by the Chamber of Commerce would be enough to support the investment in the early stage of the Great Western Development Strategy. To be continued. Chapter 302. On the 25th day of the 12th month of the first year of Gaia, a system announcement resounded throughout the China server. System announcement. On the first anniversary of the game's operation, the system will be holding a second system auction on the first day of January in the second year of Gaia at 10 in the morning. When the time comes, there will be many rare treasures being auctioned. Please look forward to it. Friendly reminder, please prepare your funds in advance. Otherwise, you will return empty-handed. As soon as the announcement was made, the feudal lords all rubbed their hands in glee. In the first system auction, Ouyang Shua was in the limelight, monopolizing 5 out of 10 items. The effect of the auction had already been fully reflected through the 3 battles. It was exactly with the help of the technical manuals that the army of Shanghai County had obtained from the auction that they had been able to perform well in the battles and earn a lot of contribution points. Even though they had just gone through a food crisis, the territories with deep foundations had already walked out of the financial crisis, who didn't have a few thousand gold coins in their hands. Therefore, the second system auction was bound to be even more intense. Ouyang Shua didn't want to miss it either. Just yesterday, the Finance Department had calculated the income and expenditure of the territory for December. After the territory had fully implemented the prefecture and county system, the finance and tax reform plan that you had previously mentioned had been officially approved by Ouyang Shua after being revised by the team of experts. and was put into effect. According to the reform plan, the taxes collected at the county level would be turned over to the prefectural government according to a certain proportion, and the taxes collected at the prefectural level, including the separately established cities, would be turned over to the prefectural government according to a certain proportion, which was currently the Marquis Mansion of Lianzhou. Different types of taxes required different proportions of payments. Also in December, the territory's tax rate was adjusted to 15% and the tax revenue doubled. In December, Shanghai Prefecture paid 15,500 gold coins in taxes. Tianfeng Prefecture paid 7,500 gold coins in taxes. Beihai City paid 14,500 gold coins in taxes, including the profits from the Northern Twilight Salt Works. Yishui County paid 3,500 gold coins in taxes, and Gushan County paid 1,000 gold coins in taxes, for a total of 42,000 gold coins. The Wolf Mountain Mine, which was under the direct jurisdiction of the Ministry of Finance, turned in 8,500 gold coins a profit. The Three Flower Winery turned in 7,500 gold coins a profit, and the Mulberry Garden and other industries turned in 4,000 gold coins a profit, for a total of 20,000 gold coins. The two items added up to 62,000 gold coins. The expenses of Marquis Lianzhou's mansion mainly consisted of military expenses, administrative expenses, and financial transfer payments. The military expenses accounted for the majority of the expenses, including the salaries and other expenses for the three divisions, the Forbidden Brigade, and the North Sea Fleet, which amounted to 27,500 gold coins. The administrative expenses mainly included the various departments of the Marquis Manor, the four major military workshops, the military factory in the cave, the Southwest University China Hall, and the military lecture hall that was currently under construction. The total expenditure was about 4,500 gold coins. Among them, the military workshops and factories accounted for the majority of the administrative expenses. Of course, when the military equipment was sold to the public, it would no longer be a financial burden. Instead, it would become one of the main sources of revenue. The financial transfer payments included 4,000 gold coins for the official road project, 3,500 gold coins for the city wall project of Tianfeng City, 5,000 gold coins for the city wall project of Shanghai City, 2,000 gold coins for the construction of the military martial arts lecture hall, and 1,500 gold coins for the Gushan County, for a total of 16,000 gold coins. The total cost of the three items added up to 48,000 gold coins. In total, the territory had a net revenue of 15,000 gold coins in December. Whether it was the payment of taxes or the transfer payments, they were all done through the branches of the Bank of the Four Seas in the various prefectures and counties. After Ing Yu's coordination, the Bank of the Four Seas Banknote Printing Bureau had been officially established. The papermaking workshop and printing workshop were built behind the Bank of the Four Seas headquarters, and Meng Jida was personally in charge of it. Of course, it would still take some time before the actual banknote was issued. Because he had paid the 5,000 gold coins for the army's trial, Ouyang Shu only had 105,000 gold coins left in his storage pouch. Therefore, the net revenue for December was all intercepted by Ouyang Shua. The two items added up to 120,000 gold coins, which was also all of Ouyang Shua's fund for participating in the auction. At the edge of the 100,000 mountains, a young man stumbled along the mountain path while leaning on a tree branch. The young man had traveled a long distance and was covered in dust. His hair was messy, and upon closer inspection, there were even some bird droppings hanging on it. The man's face was dark, his eyes were sunken, and his cheeks were loose. He seemed to be a sleepy and hungry traveler. Upon closer inspection, the young man's clothes were already tattered. Through the holes in his clothes, one could see that the man's body was covered in wounds. Blood had seeped into his clothes, sticking the linen clothes tightly to his flesh. Some of the wounds had already scabbed over, and some were infected and oozing pus. The wounds were not only scratched by thorns, but there were also some that were obviously caused by sharp blades. All of this indicated that the young man was not as simple as a traveler. The man's willpower was extremely tenacious. Hunger and injuries could not shake him in the slightest. His eyes were resolute and full of spirit. Facing the morning sun, the young man finally successfully walked out of the 100,000 mountains. A relieved smile appeared on his face. Perhaps it was because he had finally relaxed, but just as the man wanted to take a step forward and continue forward, his body suddenly stopped listening to him, and he powerlessly collapsed to the ground. Hunger and drowsiness attacked him like a tide. The man finally could not take it anymore and directly fainted. "Warrior, wake up! Wake up!" The patrolling soldiers discovered the fainted man on the ground. "Captain, he seems to have fainted. Check to see if there's any sign. This person came out of the 100,000 mountains and is unusual." "Hey!" The soldier searched the man's body and suddenly found an iron sign. "Captain, there really is a sign. Let me see." The captain took the sign and his eyes narrowed. This is the sign of the Military Intelligence Department. The Military Intelligence Department? Quick! This person must be a spy who entered the mountains to investigate. Quickly carry him to the medical center for treatment. I'll inform the Lord. Yes. It was already night when Lung Qian woke up. Out of professional habit, he vigilantly checked his surroundings and found that he was in a medical center. Not only had he changed into clean clothes, but his wounds had also been properly treated. Seems like he's saved. Lung Qian breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, a doctor pushed the door open and entered. Seeing that Lung Qian had woken up, he smiled and said, "Warrior, you're awake? Good. I'll get someone to prepare some food for you." Hearing this, Lung Qian was really hungry. His stomach was growling. He had not eaten for 2 days and 3 nights. He said gratefully, "Thank you, sir." No need. Warrior, you were sent here by the city defense camp. The county magistrate specially came to see you. Seeing that you were unconscious and did not disturb you, I dare not neglect you," the doctor said as he left the room to prepare a midnight snack. Lung Qian secretly felt lucky. He remembered that he should have fainted at the edge of the mountains. It seemed that he was found by the patrolling soldiers of the Gushan County City Defense Camp and brought back to the medical center for treatment. The journey to the 100,000 mountains was full of twists and turns. The hardships were not worth mentioning to outsiders. A month ago, he brought more than 10 capable spies from the Military Intelligence Department to investigate the mountains. He was the only one who came back alive. Even a hummingbird that accompanied him died a violent death. It was really dangerous and unpredictable. Just as Lung Qian was deep in thought, the door was pushed open again. This time, other than the doctor, the magistrate of Gushan County, Lei Fan, also came in. The doctor put down the food box and tactfully left the room. He closed the door again. As for what the magistrate wanted to talk about with the patient, he did not care and did not dare to care. Lei Fan had seen Lung Qian before. Before Lung Qian entered the mountains, the two had communicated for a while. He was also the first person to notice the abnormality of the mountain barbarians and had been waiting for news from the Military Intelligence Department. What made him feel strange was that after the investigation team of the Military Intelligence Department entered the 100,000 mountains, there was no news from them. It was as if they had disappeared into thin air. How could he not be anxious? The conversation between the two was not as confidential as the doctor in the medical center thought. Since the establishment of the territory, the military and the government had been separated. Therefore, although Lei Fan was the magistrate, he had no right to ask about the performance of the Military Intelligence Department's mission. Lei Fan was just doing his duty as a host and expressing his concern. He knew that Lung Qian was not only one of the 3 giants of the Military Intelligence Department, but was also highly regarded by the Marquis. His future was limitless. After Lei Fan left, Lung Qian ate a simple meal and recovered his strength before leaving the medical center. Gushan County was close to the 100,000 mountains and was also at the edge of the territory. It was the focus of the 1st Military Intelligence Department. In order to collect information, the 1st Military Intelligence Department had set up a contact point in Gushan County. The contact point was so secretive that even Gushan County did not know about it. Lung Qian left the medical center and rushed there as soon as he could. Leader, seeing Lung Qian, the spy who stayed at the contact point was overjoyed. Lung Qian waved his hand and said, "Don't say anything, don't ask anything. Prepare 2 fast horses for me. Tomorrow morning, I will rush back to the headquarters to meet the Marquis. Yes, sir. The spy was well-trained and immediately turned to prepare. Lung Qian nodded and found the hummingbird at the contact point. He reported the general situation of this trip to the headquarters of the Military Intelligence Department through the hummingbird. If there were no accidents, the headquarters of the Military Intelligence Department would receive the news tomorrow morning at the latest. It had been more than half a year since they received the hummingbird contributed by the mystic bird tribe. Under Ouyang Shua's instructions, the Military Intelligence Department had bred a large number of hummingbirds and built a complete communication network with the hummingbird as the core. If the hummingbird that Lung Qian brought with him on this trip had not been accidentally discovered by the enemy and died, there would not have been no news for a month. After making the arrangements, Lung Qian returned to his room to rest. The night passed uneventfully. Early the next morning, Lung Qian quietly left Gushan County and went straight to Shanghai City. Just as Lung Qian set off, the headquarters of the Military Intelligence Department had already received the news from Lung Qian. The Director General of the Military Intelligence Department, Song San, received the news and immediately rushed to the Marquis's residence to report. To be continued. Chapter 303. When Song San walked into the manor, Ouyang Shuo was doing his morning exercises. Ever since the inner cannon of the Yellow Emperor had broken through to the 5th level, Ouyang Shuo's physical fitness had greatly improved. Whether it was strength, speed, vision, or hearing, they had all improved. His inner force could be said to have achieved a small success. Under the drive of his powerful inner force, the Yang family's spear technique and 8 extremities fist had also improved by leaps and bounds. Especially the Yang family's spear technique. With the heavenly demon spear, Ouyang Shuo was like a fish in water. His spear technique improved at a speed visible to the naked eye. Under the infusion of inner force, the black spearhead flashed with a dazzling golden light. As his personal strength increased, Ouyang Shuo's temperament also changed bit by bit. He had the magnanimity of a lord, majestic without being angry, but also the cold, murderous aura of a general, iron-blooded and domineering. The two completely different temperaments blended together, forming Ouyang Shuo's unique style. The two-faced Azura from his previous life seemed to have returned. The only difference was that in this life, he stood higher and saw further. After finishing, Ouyang Shuo saw Song San standing at the door and asked, "What's the matter?" Reporting to Marquis, Lung Qian has safely returned to Gushan County and is on his way back to the headquarters. Good. Ouyang Shuo heaved a sigh of relief. Wait in the study. I will be there soon. Yes. Song San left. Ouyang Shuo returned to the main courtyard, changed his clothes, ate something simple, and hurried to the study. Tell me what's going on. According to the information sent by Lung Qian, he has already investigated the reason for the mountain barbarians' migration. All the mountain barbarians have migrated to a place called Qiyu City in Wu Prefecture. Qiyu City? Ouyang Shuo was shocked. That's right. The one occupying Wu Prefecture is the Zhuli tribe that appeared in the wilderness after the Battle of Zhuolu. Song San had participated in the Battle of Zhuolu, so he knew this period of history very well. Although Qiyu was killed by Shi Wan Sui in the Battle of Zhuolu, as the leader of the camp, he would immediately be resurrected after the battle and once again lead the Zhuli tribe that appeared in the wilderness. However, didn't Gaia say that the Yellow Emperor tribe, the Yin Emperor tribe, and the Zhuli tribe were hidden tribes? Why would the Zhuli tribe appear in the wilderness in such a high-profile manner and recruit soldiers so brazenly? If the one who recruited the mountain barbarians was Qiyu, then everything could be explained. In the final moments of the Zhuolu battle, Qiyu led his troops to flee to the ferocious Dawn Valley. That night, Qiyu arranged for his 4 brothers to lead a group of clansmen to the south and escape to the deep mountains and forests in the south. This part of the Zhili tribe became the Miao tribe and the Barbarian tribe. Therefore, Qiyu could be called the ancestor of the mountain barbarians. Once he appeared, the mountain barbarians would bow down to him. When Lung Qian returns, tell him to come see me immediately. Ouyang Shua's expression was solemn. Understood. Song Sin bade farewell and left, leaving Ouyang Shua alone in the study room to ponder. Lung Qian rode at top speed and arrived at Shanghai City in the afternoon. Upon his return, he immediately rushed to the Marquis Manor to report. Ouyang Shua called by Qi and Tian Wenjing over for a discussion. Lung Qian began to report the detailed information he had. I secretly followed the migrating mountain barbarian tribes all the way north, crossing over mountains and ridges. It took me half a month to walk out of the 100,000 mountains. Chiyu City was built at the foot of the 100,000 mountains. It occupied an area of about 60 square kilometers. Countless farmlands were opened up outside the city. Therefore, after the mountain barbarians migrated there, they didn't have to worry about not having enough food to last through the winter. The totem flag erected on top of the city was identical to the flag of the Jiuli tribe during the Battle of Zhuolu. That was why I was alarmed and sneaked into the city with spies to investigate. What we didn't expect was that other than the Jiuli tribe's clansmen, there were only mountain barbarians in Chiyu City. There wasn't a single Han refugee. Before we could investigate further, we were seen through by the patrolling soldiers in the city. We could only flee in a sorry state. The brothers who followed me were all killed in order to cover my retreat. At this point, Lung Qian lost control of his emotions. The eyes of the iron-blooded man were actually glistening with tears. Those spies were the elites of the military intelligence team 1. They had followed him through fire and water. Although they were subordinates, they were better than brothers. How could he not feel the pain? Ouyang Shua fell silent. In order to protect his territory, many good men had died in foreign lands. Lung Qian paused for a moment to stabilize his emotions before continuing. There's also a kind of spirit bird in Chiyu City. It's somewhat similar to their totem bird. This bird is very spiritual, even more powerful than hummingbirds. After I escaped from the city, I was chased by the spirit bird and fled all the way. The hummingbird was discovered by the spirit bird and died a violent death. Although Lung Qian downplayed it, anyone could imagine how dangerous the situation was at that time. His comrades were all killed, and the hummingbird that delivered the information was also killed. He had to survive and bring the information back to the base camp. Along the way, Lung Qian had gone through countless battles and escaped death countless times. In the wilderness, he had been woken up from his sleep countless times. Even so, Lung Qian didn't give up. With his rich anti-tracking experience in the jungle, he successfully got rid of his pursuers and walked out of the 100,000 mountains alive, despite the lack of food. Ouyang Shua saw that Lung Qian's eyes were bloodshot and that his body hadn't recovered to its best state. He said in a warm voice, "You did well. Go and rest. The military office will compensate the families of the soldiers who died twice the standard pension so that they don't have to worry about food and clothing." "Thank you, Marquis." Lung Qian endured the pain and left. "What do you think?" Ouyang Shua asked by Qi and Tian Wenjing for their opinions. Tian Wenjing was a senior official in charge of the mountain barbarian affairs in the territory. With such a thing happening to the mountain barbarians, his duty had actually come to an end. What they had to consider now was how to end it. After pondering for a moment, Tian Wenjing said, "There's no need to say more about Chiyo's influence on the mountain barbarians. No matter how we deal with the relationship with Chiyu City in the future, the most important thing now is to deal with the mountain barbarian forces in the territory." Ouyang Shua's eyes focused and said, "Go on." The mountain barbarians living in the territory include the mountain barbarian soldiers and their families in the army, the mountain barbarian settlements in the eastern suburbs of Shanghai City, the mountain barbarian tribes that still live in the mountains around the Wolf Mountain Mine in Gushan County. There are too many unstable factors among them. They might be tempted by the messenger sent by Chiyu and become disloyal, so we have to guard against them. Especially Gushan County, where all the people living are mountain barbarians, and it's close to the 100,000 mountains. It's the most dangerous place. Ow! Ouyang Shua remained calm and collected. First, the mountain barbarian soldiers. The heavy infantry, made up of mountain barbarian soldiers, is the trump card of the territory. Once something happens, the consequences will be unimaginable. I can't say much about the restrictions of the army, but I believe that General Eli and General Eli will definitely have a way. I'm thinking of moving all the relatives of the mountain barbarian soldiers to Shanghai City and settle down there. Ouyang Sha nodded and looked at Bai Qi, saying, General, take some time to visit the 3rd Division. Don't worry, Bai Qi said concisely. Second, the mountain barbarian settlements in the eastern suburbs of Shanghai City. The mountain barbarian tribes that have settled down there are the first batch of mountain barbarians who submitted to the territory. They have experienced a good harvest of food and live a prosperous life. They have basically integrated into the life of the territory. Therefore, it's enough to monitor them a little. There's no need to make a big fuss about it. Third, the mountain barbarian tribes that still live in the mountains around the Wolf Mountain mine. They have the mystic bird tribe as their core. Most of the children in the tribe have already held important positions in the army and are living a relatively prosperous life. No matter what, whether they are willing or not, they must go down the mountain and settle down there. Otherwise, there are a bunch of time bombs that can be detonated at any time. As for the place to settle down, I suggest that we choose the western suburbs. It just so happens that the implementation of the Western development strategy requires a lot of labor. At the same time, the Wolf Mountain garrison also needs to be replaced. Fourth, Gushan County. Gushan County is a completely autonomous county of mountain barbarians. They have not established a strong enough bond with the territory, so they're the most vulnerable group to be instigated. I suggest that we should move the entire Gushan County to the west and arrange for the army to closely monitor it. Ouyang Sha basically agreed with the first few suggestions. When Tian Wenjing said the last one, Ouyang Sha frowned and said, This method is not appropriate. Let's not talk about whether they have disloyalty or not. If we do this, the mountain barbarians will no longer be truly close to us. The knot in their hearts will never be erased. Not only that, it will easily make the other mountain barbarians feel bitterly disappointed. It will make the policy of equality of all races in the territory useless. This is very inappropriate. But, Yangon, you don't need to say anything. I have made up my mind. Gushan County's autonomous policy of mountain barbarians must not be changed. Yes. Tian Wenjing let out a sigh. Don't worry. I will ask Lei Fan to come over another day and have a deep discussion with him. Based on my understanding of Lei Fan, he's not a short-sighted person. He's someone with a deep mind. He should know that staying in the territory is far more promising than running away to Chiyu City. Otherwise, he would not have reported the abnormality of the mountain barbarians in the first place. Marquis Jun is wise. Yangon, you have to personally go to persuade the mountain barbarian tribes to go down the mountain. The key to this trip is still the Grand Shaman of the Mystic Bird tribe. Yangon, bring a gift and personally visit the Grand Shaman with my greetings. As for the matter of Chiyu City, you can also disclose it to the Grand Shaman. The Grand Shaman is a true wise man. He will understand. Although he had only met the Grand Shaman once, he had already left a deep impression on Ouyang Sha. Yes. Ouyang Sha looked at Bai Qi and said, We also need to take some precautions on military matters. It's time to put the 3,000 soldiers in a temporary reserve duty to use. Set up a garrison camp to replace the Wolf Mountain garrison. The remaining 2,500 soldiers will be organized into an independent brigade under the command of the Eastern City Camp. They will be responsible for guarding Gushan County. This is very appropriate. Bai Qi nodded in agreement. Ouyang Sha believed that even if Chiyu was hostile to him, he would not choose this time to stir up trouble. For an ambitious person like him, strengthening his own forces was the most important thing. To be continued. Chapter 304. After the discussion was settled, Shanghai City was in an uproar again. Tian Wenjing personally went to the Mystic Bird tribe to meet the Great Shaman. He explained the pros and cons and requested the Great Shaman to coordinate the settlement of the tribes. If any tribe was stubborn and insisted on some tribal tradition, Shanghai City would have no choice but to deal with them. No one could stop the determination of Shanghai City to eliminate the hidden dangers. Bai Qi selected a battalion and stationed it in the Wolf Mountain Mine. He personally led the reorganized Independent Brigade to Gushan County to arrange the border defense. He also inspected the 3rd Division to appease the soldiers. The next day, the Gushan County Magistrate Lei Fan hurried to Shanghai City. Ouyang Shuo and Lei Fan talked in secret for the whole morning. No one knew the specific content of the conversation. They only knew that when Lei Fan left the Marquis's mansion, he had a lot on his mind. He did not rest and directly returned to Gushan County. The combination of punches dazzled the eyes of the audience. On the 27th of December, Lei Fan returned to Gushan County and immediately organized the migration of more than 15,000 mountain barbarians to the west. They would move to the western suburbs of Shanghai City and build a settlement there to live and work in peace. These mountain barbarians were the relatives of the mountain barbarian soldiers in the army. On the same day, Bai Qi led the Independent Brigade to the military camp of Gushan County. Bai Qi inspected the border between Gushan County and the 100,000 Mountains. He began to build trenches, sentry towers, hidden sentries, and other defensive facilities. He pushed the defensive line deep into the 100,000 Mountains. Any movement in the mountains could not escape the detection of the hidden sentries. On the 29th of December, the mountain barbarian tribes left their strongholds under Tian Wenjing's carrot and stick tactics. They moved to the west and threw themselves into the wave of development in the west. Ouyang Shuo personally received the great shaman of the mystic bird tribe in the Marquis's mansion of Lian province. After not seeing him for half a year, the great shaman's health was deteriorating. He needed help to walk. Even so, Ouyang Shuo still admired the wisdom of the great shaman. It was more appropriate to say that the conversation between the two was Ouyang Shuo's humble inquiry. This old man's wisdom benefited him greatly every time he met him. The high standard of courtesy that the great shaman received caused a whirlwind among the mountain barbarians. Ouyang Shuo's action fully showed that he valued the mountain barbarians as a lord. He treated them equally and did not discriminate. He firmly implemented the policy of equality for all tribes. This action also caused a small interlude. The former chief of the Tianfeng tribe, Dari Achi, who had been living leisurely in Shanghai City, represented the Grassland tribe and requested for the Grassland tribe to enjoy equal treatment in their territory. Ouyang Shuo took advantage of the situation and promised that as long as the tribes of the Grassland came to join him, there would be no discrimination and they would be treated well. Amidst the clamor, December finally came to an end. On the December 30th of the first year of Gaia, a system announcement resounded throughout the world. World announcement. On the first anniversary of Earthon's launch, the game will undergo an update, effective immediately. For the details, please check the official website. Only Ouyang Shuo's heart trembled. As far as he could remember, there were no updates on the first anniversary in his previous life. His existence had already begun to affect the progress of the game. Ouyang Shuo immediately logged into the official website to check the update. Compared to the first major update, this update was more fragmented, more like a game patch. One added NPC aptitude settings. NPC aptitude is divided into 4 grades: A, B, C, and D. The higher the NPC's aptitude, the greater their potential, and the easier it is for them to break through the bottleneck of their profession. Of course, historical figures were not included in the assessment. According to the ratio given by Gaia, A accounted for 0.05%, B for 495%, C for 35%, and D for 60%. The exact number was affected by the characteristics of the territory, so there would be slight fluctuations. An NPC with an A-grade aptitude was a strong candidate for high-level talents, such as high-ranking generals and grandmasters. They were also the most valuable wealth in the territory. According to the ratio, only one NPC with an A-grade aptitude would spawn out of 2,000 refugees. The introduction of the aptitude settings was beneficial to the feudal lords. It could reduce the burden on the feudal lords, making it easier to select talents. Although aptitude did not represent everything, it was at least a very intuitive reference. 2. Remove the setting of feudal lord players being unable to leave the territory. Feudal lord players can be like adventurer players. They can use teleportation arrays to freely travel between the various major cities without any restrictions. Similarly, the players who settled down in the territory will regain their freedom of movement and can teleport freely. The location of the second system auction was chosen to be held at the largest auction house in the capital. It was no longer an independent auction space like the previous one. It gave the feudal lords a platform to fully communicate with each other. Ouyang Shuo was truly dumbfounded by this setting. If he remembered correctly, the feudal lord players in the game were not allowed to leave the territory in his previous life until his reincarnation. How did such a change happen in just a year? It really caught him off guard. 3. Change the setting of teleportation fees. Teleportation to the battle map will no longer charge teleportation fees. Teleportation of players, be it between territories or between the capital cities, will cost a unified fee of 1 gold coin paid by the player. The territory will receive half of the teleportation fees collected when players use the teleportation arrays in the territory. Ouyang Shuo heaved a sigh of relief when he learned that teleportation to the battle map was free. According to his current title, he was allowed to lead 30,000 troops in the next battle. Just the teleportation fees alone would cost 30,000 gold coins. Gaia once again found its conscience and sought benefits for the feudal lord players. If any feudal lord was open-minded enough to open up the territory to adventurer players, just the teleportation fees alone would be a considerable amount of profit. 2. And 3. The purpose of the updates was to promote communication between players. For the feudal lords, the difficulty of managing the groups of players who settled down or temporarily came to the territory would increase exponentially. Compared to the ability of the feudal lord, it would put forward a higher requirement. 4. The 9 capital cities increased the entry tax. The tax rate was 5%, only half of the super auction platform. The capital cities increased the tax to encourage the feudal lords to open up trade routes through the wilderness, bypassing the super auction platform, and directly transport goods to the capital cities for sale. Opening up trade routes in the wilderness was a step that had to be taken sooner or later. In the future, the super auction platform might no longer exist, and it would completely become face-to-face transactions. 5. Remove the setting of not being able to gain EXP from the battle map. Not being able to gain EXP from the battle map, especially the fact that soldiers could not advance through the battle map, had always been criticized by the feudal lords. Gaia finally showed mercy and removed this setting. 6. Increase rage value setting. The general specialty requires rage value to activate in order to take effect. The setting of aggro was undoubtedly a weakness for historical generals. The specialties that a general possessed were no longer permanent buffs. In theory, one could only choose to activate one specialty at a time. Ouyang Shuo could not help but speculate that Gaia's updating of this setting was specifically targeted at him. In his previous life, no feudal lord had managed to recruit so many historical generals in the first year. 7. Special bandit camp setting. A large number of special bandit camps will randomly spawn in the wilderness. Special bandit camps will have more than 10,000 people. The high-level bandit camps in the wilderness are no match for the territorial army. In order to increase the difficulty of the game, Gaia came up with a bad idea and created a special bandit camp. 8. Added hidden job setting. Be it an adventurer job or a lifestyle job, they all have a special inherited job, which is the so-called hidden job. Gaia did not reveal the specific job, so it was up to the players to figure out themselves. Gaia also made it clear that at the annual auction, a hidden job trial scroll would be publicly auctioned. The adventurer players, who did not pay much attention to the auction, began to look forward to the auction the next day as if they were on steroids. It had to be noted that the inherited job was not limited to players. NPCs could also take up the job. 9. added secret realm setting. The wilderness will randomly spawn some secret realms at random times, waiting for players to explore. Once a secret realm is cleared, it will disappear forever. By exploring a secret realm, there's a chance to obtain divine weapons or martial arts manuals. Everything is possible. Apart from the secret realm spawned in the wilderness, there's also an item called a secret realm map. It can directly activate a temporary secret realm, allowing players to easily clear it without any competition. This was another setting targeted at adventurer players. It meant that adventurer players were beginning to receive Gaia's attention. They were finally no longer the stepchildren. 10 added fortuitous encounter mission setting. Either the capital or the wilderness can trigger a fortuitous encounter mission. When players create a character and choose a random spawn location, it is possible to trigger the fortuitous encounter system. Unfortunately, players had just entered the game and were powerless. Even if they were lucky and triggered a fortuitous encounter, there was a high chance that they would die tragically due to a lack of strength. It was different now. Players' strength had improved by leaps and bounds, and they had the ability to complete fortuitous encounter missions. In short, from this day forth, the gaming lives of adventurer players will become more colorful. Instantly, be it the forums or the national channel, they were all taken over by adventurer players. Boo-hoo! It's finally time for us adventurer players to stand out. The wheels of history roll forward, and a new generation replaces the old. Don't say I have no clothes. I want to snatch the headlines with you. Ouyang Shuo was shot down even though he was lying down. Liberating Surf, sing, sing, black is black. With the fortuitous encounter in hand and the manuals in hand, I'm invincible. Cliff jumping team. Hey, sign up quickly. Great God Gaia has finally remembered us. It's not easy. Fearless first-year gang leader of the school is recruiting lackeys. I won't be waiting after the deadline. Ouyang Shaw was not in the mood to pay attention to the revelry of adventurer players. He was thinking about how the update would affect the development of the territory and how it would affect his plans. To be continued. Chapter 305. Just when Ouyang Shuo was weighing the pros and cons, another wave arose before the first wave had even subsided. In the afternoon of the same day, another system announcement sounded. World announcement. On the first anniversary of Earth's operation, the game will release its first expansion pack, Rise Up. For the details, please check the official website. Gaia unleashed his ultimate moves one after another. It was really lovable and hateful. Rising Up was a peasant uprising. It existed in every country, such as the Spartax uprising, the Sicilian slave uprising, the Scottish uprising, the German peasant war, and so on. Of course, peasant uprisings were the most frequent in China. Peasant uprisings occurred most frequently in China, and they were also the most ferocious, directly or indirectly overthrowing several dynasties. In the game, Gaia would choose the most representative leader of the peasant uprising and arrange for them to appear in the wilderness. They would gather refugees and set off wave after wave of uprisings, directing their weapons at the various feudal lords. The refugees in the wilderness were not the only ones who joined the rebellion. Roving bandits and bandits could also complete a glamorous transformation, turning looting into enforcing justice on behalf of heaven. If the territory's peoples was not up to standard, or the taxes were too high, or the corvée was too heavy, or the people did not have enough to eat, and so on, it was possible that the people would join the rebellion and overthrow the Lord's rule. Not only that, but the peasant uprising would also sweep away a large number of refugees, which in turn would affect the number of refugees spawning in the territory. If the territory's security wasn't up to standard, there might even be a situation where no refugees spawned. Gaia obviously did not want to let the Lord develop in peace, so he constantly set up obstacles and arranged opponents for the Lord. In the first year, there were wild beasts, roving bandits, and bandits in the wilderness. In the second year, there was the special class roving bandit camp and the peasant uprising army. In the future, there would definitely be even more brutal existences. As the territory's strength increased, the opponents arranged by Gaia would only become stronger. The second year of Gaia would become a year of turmoil through and through. The territories that could withstand it would be reborn from the ashes, while the territories that could not could only dejectedly retreat. Everything had its pros and cons. If he could lead an army to defeat the rebel army, not only would he be able to capture a large number of people, but he would also be able to earn a large number of contribution points and raise his noble rank. At this moment, the law of the jungle was on full display. The strong get stronger, the weak get weaker, survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. It wasn't hard to imagine that, apart from the mountain sea territory, it would be very difficult for a single territory to survive the wave of uprisings. Alliances and alliances would become the general trend. In the near future, alliances of various sizes would spring up like bamboo shoots after the rain. The Mountain and Sea Alliance and Yanhuang Alliance, the two giants of the China server, once again became the focus of the Lord players. As the saying went, it was good to enjoy the shade under a big tree. If he could join one of the two great alliances, he wouldn't have to worry about anything. At the very least, he would have a fighting chance. It was a pity that neither the Mountain and Sea Alliance nor the Yanhuang Alliance would easily lower their standards to recruit new members. It was better to have nothing than to have something substandard. It would never go out of style. At this moment, it was the best time for an ambitious and ruthless person to rise. There was no lack of ambitious people in the top 100 territories. Although they didn't have Ouyang Shua's enormous influence, they could still form a regional alliance. In particular, the prevalence of the Lianzhou model not long ago had laid the groundwork for the outbreak at this time. Within 10 days, the situation had reversed. Now, it wasn't a problem of a big territory forcing a small territory to sign a contract, but a small territory asking for protection from a big territory. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to survive this disaster. If Ouyang Shuo remembered correctly, in the third year of Gaia in his previous life, the number of territories in the China server had decreased sharply, and there were less than 500 territories. As long as they weren't promoted to a county capital, they would basically be eliminated. His appearance had completely changed the structure of the China server, breaking the rule of Handan City's 6 hegemons and giving more ambitious and ruthless people a chance to rise. Ouyang Shuo still couldn't predict how the situation would develop in the future. Ouyang Shuo shook his head and continued to look at the content of the information. The China server had the most frequent peasant uprisings. Gaia chose the 4 most representative peasant uprisings in China's history and threw them into the wilderness at once. Uprising name: Chun Sheng and Wu Guang Uprising, uprising time. End of Qin Dynasty, uprising leaders. Chun Sheng Wu Guang, activity area. Central Plains, uprising evaluation. The first large-scale peasant uprising in China's history, uprising name. Yellow Turban Uprising, uprising time. End of Eastern Han Dynasty, uprising leaders. Zhang Jiao, Zhang Bao, Zhang Liang, activity area. North, uprising evaluation. The largest peasant uprising in China's history organized in the form of a religious organization. Uprising name: Huang Chao Peasant Uprising, uprising time. End of Tang Dynasty, uprising leaders. Huang Chao, activity area. Southeast, uprising evaluation. The longest, largest, and most influential peasant uprising at the end of Tang Dynasty. Uprising name: Taiping Heavenly Kingdom Movement, uprising time. Qing Dynasty, uprising leaders. Hong Xiuquan, Yang Xiuqing, Li Xiuqing, activity area. Southwest, uprising evaluation. The largest peasant uprising in China's history. The environment in the game was completely different from the time of the uprising. Therefore, Gaia had restricted the 4 rebel groups to 4 major regions, which basically covered the China region. As for regions that were not affected, such as Jingzhou Island and Izhou Island, even if they were lucky and escaped the disaster, Gaia didn't pursue absolute fairness at all. Luck was also a form of strength. As the saying goes, there are pros and cons. Nothing is absolute. Jingzhou Island and Izhou Island were not connected to any royal city and were isolated overseas. In Gaia's settings, the two islands were still in a barbaric period. The islands were filled with powerful beasts that were abnormally dangerous, and there were even wild beasts. In addition, there were a large number of aborigines living on the islands who hunted for a living. Think about it. To be able to survive on the islands that were filled with wild beasts, how strong would these aborigines be? These two factors made it very difficult for players to survive on the islands. Otherwise, when Ouyang Shuo was choosing his birthplace, he wouldn't have chosen the Lianzhou Basin and would have been born on the island. The island was a paradise, but it was also a cage. Among the four rebel groups, Ouyang Shuo was most concerned about the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom movement. This was because the birthplace of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom movement was Jintian village in Xuanzhou, Guangxi. Xuanzhou was located to the north of the Lianzhou Basin. Once out of the Southern Guard Pass, one would enter the boundaries of Xuanzhou. As for Wuzhou, where Qiyu City was located, it was to the east of Xuanzhou. In other words, if Ouyang Shuo wanted to enter the hinterland of Guangxi, he would have to deal with the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. The Tianping Heavenly Kingdom was well organized, and it had many capable officials and generals. It could be said to be the most powerful group among the four rebel groups. It was no small matter. With the current strength of the Mountain Sea territory, it was impossible for them to fight against the Tianping Heavenly Kingdom at its peak. Fortunately, the eruption of the rebellion required a process of preparation. It would not explode all at once. In the beginning, the leader of the rebellion would lead a group of core members to appear in the wilderness, recruit soldiers, and conquer a territory as a base. Then, they would continue to expand and occupy more territories. This cycle would repeat. Their ultimate goal was to establish a powerful regime, a nation. Therefore, the rebel group could be seen as a feudal lord group with a built-in bug. From the moment they were born, they would have their own core members. Furthermore, they had the powerful ability to gather refugees. There would not be a situation where they were alone or had a weak foundation. Thus, the feudal lords could only lick their boots. Ouyang Shuo could not help but pray for the territories that happened to be the birthplace of the rebel group. They would be the first victims. There was no way they could stop the massive rebel army. In his previous life, Ouyang Shuo remembered that some unlucky feudal lords would simply surrender to the rebel group and seek an official position within the rebel group. Some of the feudal lords would really make a name for themselves and be in the limelight for a while. In fact, Gaia's setting was very free. After Gaia planted the rebel group in the wilderness, it would not interfere with the operation of the game. In other words, if the rebel group was really powerful and capable, or if the feudal lords were too useless, then the rebel group could really establish a nation in the wilderness and continue to survive. Gaia would not say that it would wait until the next expansion pack to eliminate the forces planted in the wilderness. Definitely not. If the feudal lords of a country could not defeat the rebel group in their own country, then it was very simple. The feudal lords of the country would have to be killed without any mercy. In the end, it would be up to the system's royal city to send troops to eliminate the rebel group. After that, the players of the country could only do village building quests, obtain a village creation token, and build a new level 1 village in the wilderness. Everything would have to start from scratch. This way, when a war broke out, the country would be at the mercy of the other countries. Therefore, the feudal lords surrendering to the rebel group was not necessarily a bad way out. If they could seek a high position in the rebel group, or even assist the rebel group to overcome all obstacles and make meritorious contributions, there was a possibility that they could become a founding hero and regain their title and fiefdom. At the end of the game, when the achievement points were tallied, the fiefdom would still be effective. This way, it would not only provide a chance of survival for the unlucky feudal lords, but it would also deduce the progress of the game to an even more complicated situation. This was a huge challenge for the feudal lords. Otherwise, why would there be players joking in his previous life that the feudal lords who could last in the wilderness were masochists? Under Gaia's continuous abuse, they truly They were in pain and happiness. Ouyang Shuo could only smile bitterly at this. What he could do now was to speed up the pace of unifying the Lianzhou Basin and win a safe and stable rear for his territory. As for the rest, he could only deal with it as it came. To be continued. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.